Good evening, gentle dreamer. Before we begin, where are you listening from tonight? Berlin, New York, a small seaside town whose waves hush the streets? Wherever you are, imagine that I am whispering from just beyond your bedside lamp, voice carried on a cool night breeze. Listen for the wind brushing through the treetops outside your window, rustling like pages of an ancient storybook. Do you hear the faint lullaby humming in the distance? It drifts between the stars, soft as a mother's goodnight, weaving a cradle for your thoughts. Tonight, we will follow a girl who has waited in the tower longer than any of us have waited for morning light. Her days were measured by the angle of the sun through a single window, her hopes by lanterns that rose each year like faraway wishes. She has painted every stone around her with dreams of grass beneath bare feet, of rivers that sing, and of skies so wide she might fall upward into them. Close your eyes, breathe softly, feel your chest rise, and fall, like the gentle sway of ivy climbing an old stone wall. Let each exhale loosen the knots of the busy day. Let each inhale carry in the scent of fresh rain after a summer storm. In this quiet space, distance fades. Your room becomes the foot of that hidden tower, moonlight pooling across the floorboards, inviting you to look up. A single golden glow spills from the window above, and a story begins to unfold. Settle in, traveler of dreams. The girl is waiting, and her world is only a breath away. Let the hush of the night guide you onward, one deep breath at a time. And when you're ready, we'll climb those secret stones together. Until then, listen to the silence. Long ago, before the first castle stones were stacked, before any lullaby was ever whispered, the great sun shed a single tear of light. That drop tumbled through drifting clouds, brushed the wings of startled swans, and came to rest in a quiet field beside the sea. Where it touched the earth, the soil warmed, shimmered, and sighed. Up sprang a blossom unlike any the world had seen, a slender green stem crowned by petals spun from pure living gold. Even under daylight the flower glowed, but at sunset it blazed like a candle in the dark, sending threads of warm light across the grass. For years the bloom swayed in evening breezes, unknown to kings, scholars, or wandering minstrels, but not unknown to every eye. One dusk, an old woman in a dust-colored cloak paused at the meadow's edge. Her name was Mother Gothel, though she mothered no one. Time had curled her spine, thinned her hair, and folded her face into tired lines, yet her thoughts were sharp as thorns. Legends had long whispered of a sun-kissed flower that could steal age from bone. When she beheld its golden glow, she knew the stories were true. Gothel knelt, sang an ancient lullaby, and brushed trembling fingers against a petal. At the first soft note, flower, gleam, and glow. The bloom brightened. Light poured into the woman's skin, smoothing wrinkles, straightening her back, turning brittle gray strands to soft sable. Youth returned like a tide. Greed, quick and certain, drowned any softer feeling. She would keep this miracle for herself. That very night she uprooted the plant, bulb and all, and carried it deep into the forest. Beneath a crumbling stone archway, she replanted it inside a ruined chapel wrapped in thorny vines. Each dawn she tended the fragile stem, each dusk she sang the magic song, guarding her secret with watchful eyes while seasons slipped past unnoticed on her ageless face. Beyond those woods, sunlight gleamed on a radiant city of marble towers and silver-tipped spires. There ruled a gentle king and queen who loved their people and each other. One spring morning, sweeter than most, the queen fell terribly ill. Physicians whispered and frowned, remedies failed. As hope dimmed, the captain of the guard recalled an old legend of a golden flower gifted by the sun that healed any hurt. Desperation turned legend into quest. Soldiers clad in forest green armor rode beneath banners of a rising sun. They crossed valleys, questioned hermits, and scaled mossy cliffs. On the seventh night, moonlight caught a strange gleam beyond a bramble wall. Blades hacked through the thicket. Torches bobbed past the archway, and there, bathed in silver light, the miraculous flower shone. Petals were gathered with reverence and haste. In the palace infirmary, they were brewed into a shimmering tea. The queen drank, and warmth swept through her like a second heartbeat. Color returned to her cheeks. Breath steadied. Laughter spilled into candlelit halls. Bells rang across the city. Doves spiraled skyward. Fountains leapt higher in celebration. Soon after, on the longest day of the year, a daughter was born. Princess Rapunzel, perfect and pink, crowned with downy strands of hair that glimmered gold. At the christening, every guest marveled as the infant's curls seemed to catch and scatter sunlight. Courtiers whispered of blessings. Yet one set of ears heard something else, a promise of power stolen from her. Far away, in her vine-tangled ruin, Mother Gothel felt the magic's absence like a missing tooth. Panic chilled her bones. Without that bloom, time would claim her again, and soon. Rumors of a newborn with shining hair reached her within days. Desperation blazed into resolve. If the magic had passed from petal to child, the child would be hers. Under a moon, thick as a silver coin, Gothel cloaked herself in night and slipped over palace walls. She scaled ivy lattices and crept into the nursery where lantern light flickered soft and sweet. There lay Rapunzel, tiny fists curled like petals, hair spilling across the blanket in a gentle, golden river. Gothel hummed the old lullaby, flower, gleam, and glow. The strands brightened and, swirling with light, youth flushed once more through her veins, cold certainty filling her heart. She gathered the babe in dark silk and vanished before dawn's first rays kissed the marble steps. When the king rushed to the cradle at sunrise, only silence greeted him. Silence and a single golden thread lying across the pillow like a farewell. Horns summoned riders to every road and river, but no messenger returned with good news. Grief veiled the palace. Each year on the lost princess's birthday, thousands of lanterns were released into the sky, tiny fireflies of hope drifting toward the unknown. Deep within the forest, on a hidden cliff, a lonely tower rose above the canopy. Its smooth stone walls held no stair, and only one high window faced the sun. Gothel carried Rapunzel to the upper chamber, locked the single door, and spun comforting lies. "The world outside is cruel," she cooed. "Here, my flower, you are safe." And so the tower became cradle, classroom, and castle all at once. As seasons turned, Mother Gothel's features remained youthful, her secret songs siphoning radiance from Rapunzel's glowing locks whenever age threatened to return. Yet the child herself blossomed with laughter and wonder. She painted suns on gray stone, hummed with birds at the windowsill, and measured each sunrise across the floorboards. When she pressed her palms to the glass and watched leaves flutter far below, she knew nothing of distance, only that the world felt larger than the walls that held her. Thus began the tale of the golden gift. Light fallen from heaven, stolen by desire, bestowed upon innocence, and hidden behind stone. But the thickest walls cannot forever contain the sunrise, and somewhere between heartbeats the tower whispered a promise. One day, the light would find its way home. Rapunzel's earliest memories glowed with that promise. She mixed paints from crushed berries, tied ribbons for imaginary celebrations, and traced shapes of distant lanterns she had never seen yet somehow remembered. When Gothel left to fetch supplies, Rapunzel leaned out as far as safety allowed, golden hair spilling like a rope of dawn. In those quiet moments, a seed of wonder sprouted, small now, but patient, steady. and stronger every year. And high above the forest canopy the tower waited, ivy curling upward like hands reaching for the sky, while far away a kingdom lit lanterns and searched the night for its lost princess, never knowing that she too was searching the stars for them. The tower stands like a single forgotten candle in the heart of an emerald sea. Its stone base rises from a rocky outcrop, sheer and smooth, offering no staircase, no handhold, no friendly vine, only a promise that whoever lives within will remain exactly where they are. Age has mottled the bricks to lavender gray. Time has softened the mortar into mossy seams. Yet the tower still reaches higher than the tallest pine, its crown brushing low clouds and catching first light before the rest of the forest even yawns awake. Ivy coils around it in thick braids, green upon green, climbing upward in slow, determined spirals. The vines bloom with specks of white flowers each spring, and in autumn their leaves rustle like tiny parchment sails. To the sparrows and warblers, the tower is a cliff-face sunrise, a place to perch, preen, and sing. To the travelers who glimpse it from distant ridges, it's a rumor wrapped in daylight. Who would build such a home, where even shadows hesitate to follow? One might think a dozen windows would circle so tall a structure, but just one breaks the outer wall, a neat arch halfway to the sky. Morning sun pours through it, afternoon breezes whisper through it, and evening lantern light glows there like an ember guiding lost souls, though no soul can reach it. Beneath that window sits a small wooden bed carved with dandelions and curling stems. The frame creaks gently when Rapunzel shifts in sleep, but it has never complained of being moved. It has only known this room, these stones, this quiet. Opposite the bed stretches an arched wall painted in palette after palette of the young girl's making. Stars scatter across midnight blue. Faraway cities gleam beyond misty bridges. Flocks of violet-winged swans sweep over gold-tipped mountains. Each painting begins with a single dream and ends with Rapunzel's giggle of satisfaction as she backs away, brush still dripping, to see if the wall feels bigger inside her heart. Books are stacked on every sill, a library gathered over years of Gothel's careful scavenging. Leather-bound chronicles of ancient heroes lean against tiny chapbooks filled with riddles and rain songs. Rapunzel has read each one aloud, sometimes twice, sometimes 10 times, giving every character a different voice so the tower feels crowded with guests. When she finishes a chapter, she places a pressed sprig of ivy between the pages. She says the stories like to keep souvenirs of their visit. Candle making is her newest craft. On quiet afternoons, she melts wax over a little iron stove, dipping cotton wicks again and again until stubby rods turn to gleaming pillars. Some she perfumes with crushed lavender. Others she swirls with bits of sapphire paint so their flames narrate blue shadows on the ceiling at night. When a candle cools, she scratches a tiny star at its base, a silent promise that even small lights can map the dark. But her greatest joy, and her clearest window to the wider world, is song. At dawn, she hums to the forest, notes fluttering down like petals to the earth below. Birds flock to the sill, tilting their heads, catching the tune and answering in harmony. She teaches the robins to trill soft lullabies, trades rhythms with chatty finches, and listens to the slow owl harmonies that drift upward when the moon is full. Sometimes, when the wind is just right, the forest answers back, leaves chiming together, distant streams tapping along like drums. Every morning, Mother Gothel arrives, hood drawn, footsteps masked by moss. With quiet grunts, she hauls baskets of vegetables and cloth, spools of thread, jars of paint, fresh parchment, and, when Rapunzel begs, sticky bundles of honeycombs for special candle batches. She stashes her ladder, one rope, 2 hooks, somewhere secret between the trees, before tugging a bell cord that dangles just out of sight above. Rapunzel lowers her hair, 40 feet and more, shimmering like spun sunrise until Gothel grips the braid and climbs swiftly, slippers whispering across golden strands. Inside, Gothel's visits follow a practiced dance. She arranges new supplies on a wooden table, muttering about rising prices or nosy guards. She checks Rapunzel's paints, counts wax sticks, and folds the quilts the girl sewed the week before. Then her gaze settles on the tower walls. If a brand new mural glows there, a city with rooftops she's never seen, or a lantern festival too bright, too hopeful, her eyes narrow. "Remember, my flower," she says, smoothing Rapunzel's hair with a possessive touch. "The world beyond is filled with thieves and thorns. They would cut your hair and take your light. Stay inside, and you will be safe." Rapunzel nods, because nodding is easier than questioning, but the spark in her green eyes never quite dims. She knows the pattern of Gothel's words as surely as she knows each creak of the stone beneath her feet. Yet each afternoon, when Gothel's black cloak shrinks back into the forest, silence swells in her wake, and questions bloom like vines. What color is the sea? Do cities smell like cinnamon or smoke? Are lanterns really small suns that people can hold? The tower keeps many of those questions to itself, but not all. On days when clouds bunch thick and heavy, Rapunzel climbs the inner stairs that spiral up to a trapdoor set in the roof. Broom in hand, she sweeps fallen leaves from the rooftop garden, a ring of clay pots bursting with bluebells and sweet alyssum. There, she can look across the forest as though peering into a giant emerald bowl. Mountains huddle beyond, their peaks snow-kissed even in summer. She wonders if snow tastes like white sugar or like the whisper of winter. At dusk, she curls beside the window and lights a candle, letting the flame beckon twilight moths. She opens a book. Tonight it might be the tale of a knight who befriended a dragon, and reads until words blur. When the final candle flickers low, she hums a soft cradle song. Moon, keep watch. Stars, keep quiet. The birds nestle beneath roof beams, and the ivy hushes its restless climbing for the night. Some evenings, as she drifts between waking and dreaming, Rapunzel fancies she hears something else, far off, almost beyond sense. It could be the surf of an unseen ocean, or perhaps distant laughter floating above city rooftops. Whatever the sound, it carries a promise she can nearly hold, that the world is more wonder than danger. But the tower walls remain, thick and still, reminding her of Gothel's warning. Never leave. Yet curiosity is a bright, stubborn seed. It pushes through stone, crawls up chimney bricks, and peeks out where sunbeams gather dust. Day by day, Rapunzel's questions wind around her heart, gentle but unyielding. She paints them as new constellations on the ceiling, names them after possibilities. Voyageuse, Lanteria, Open Gate. She sings them in melodies shaped like rising staircases. She even braids them into her hair, strand upon strand, until her braid becomes a golden rope of silent hopes stretching from crown to heel. Still, sunset follows sunrise, and the dance repeats. The tower, the ivy, the lone window. Gothel arrives, brings supplies, warns, departs. Rapunzel reads, paints, sings, wonders, sleeps. And beyond the treetops, beyond the hush, a whole world spins, ripe with markets and meadows, storms and lanterns, danger and delight, waiting for the day when a single question grows so large it cannot be contained. For now, the tower keeps its secret girl, and the forest keeps the tower. But the sky, ever-changing, knows a truth that stone cannot. Nothing golden stays hidden forever. Morning slips into the tower like a house cat, quiet, predictable, half asleep. A soft glow touches the painted walls, turns twilight purples into rosy pinks, and coaxes Rapunzel's eyes open before the birds finish their first trill. Each day begins the same because sameness is its own sort of lullaby. She sits up, stretches like a willow uncoiling, and feels the weight of her golden hair slide across the quilt and settle over the floorboards. It is an anchor and a sail at once, a reminder of where she is, and a hint of how far she might one day go. Her first task is sweeping. She unwraps a straw broom from a linen cloth, then glides it across the stone in lazy arcs, letting bristles whisper beneath her bare feet. Dust stirs, motes glimmer in the new light, and the tower smells briefly of sun-warmed hay. She hums an old melody, something about a wishing well and a silver coin. So the routine feels less like work and more like gentle choreography. When the floor is neat, she shakes the cloth out the window, watching the dust drift down like tiny shooting stars that vanish before they reach the forest floor. Next comes brushing her hair, a ritual requiring patience and practiced grace. She settles onto a low stool, gathers the first thick lock, and pulls the brush through from crown to tip. 100 strokes on the left, 100 on the right, 100 straight down the middle for balance. Golden strands pile around her like a gilded river, catching hints of sunrise in each glossy line. By the final sweep, she can almost hear a distant ocean inside the silken hush, as though every strand remembers the sunlight that first birthed it. With the room tidy and her hair gleaming, she turns to colors. Yesterday, she crushed blueberries into velvet indigo and mixed them with melted beeswax. Today, she has plans for rose-hip reds and quiet fern greens. She sets out clay pots, dips fine brushes, and lets her wrist drift where imagination leads. Sometimes she paints constellations she has never seen, spirals of white dots that curve like secret stairways through midnight. Other times she paints lanterns rising into darkness, tiny orbs glowing above a lake she knows only from her dreams. On the western wall, a single mural grows wider each month. Children on a moonlit hill releasing shimmering lights that float upward out of reach. She calls it her maybe memory, because she feels she has stood on that hill before, even though the tower says otherwise. By mid-morning, the sun shifts, and she pulls a small table beneath the window to sketch the forest canopy. Maple leaves shine like green coins. Crows hop across distant branches. A fox slips between ferns on its soft red feet. Rapunzel names each scene in her notebook. Fox at 10 past dawn. Crow debates the wind. Sunlight buys the leaves, and draws quick lines to capture their fleeting shapes. The forest below is a living book she can only read from afar, but she adds her own chapters in watercolor margins. Lunch is simple: a slice of bread, an apple, and goat cheese left by Gothel the day before. She eats slowly, savoring the cool crumble of cheese, the crunch of skin, the warmth of grain. Sometimes she pretends each bite is part of a grand banquet thrown in a distant courtyard. She lifts her cup of water and toasts invisible guests. To the clockmaker who teaches time how to dance, to the baker whose baguettes sing when broken, to the sailor who maps horizons no one else can see. In her mind, the empty room fills with laughter, clinking glass, and the salt, clean scent of ocean breeze. Afternoon drifts in with hush and heat. Rapunzel rolls her painting cloths, tidies brushes, and coils her hair into a loose braid she calls the willow twist. She stretches across the floor, palms pressed to cool stone, letting every muscle lengthen like a cat in sunlight. Then she curls beside the window, forearms on the sill, chin resting on folded hands, and watches the world in slow motion. Leaves sway through emerald arcs. Insects hum invisible lines. A pair of sparrows trade secrets on a branch only they can reach. The scene is small, but her gaze turns it infinite. It is in these quiet stretches, late afternoon turning to early dusk, that her mind wanders to the lights. They are a yearly mystery, arriving just as the heat of summer settles into the gentler breath of autumn. On her birthday, when the forest crickets sing louder than usual and the stars seem polished clean, Rapunzel presses her cheek to the cool stone and waits. One by one, distant specks of gold rise from beyond the tree line. Slow at first, like shy wishes, then cascading in hundreds, perhaps thousands, drifting upward until they mingle with constellations. Some dance in pairs, weaving figure eights. Others climb straight, fierce and determined, as though racing to meet the moon. The first time she saw them, she was too young to count beyond 10. Yet she tried, giggling with each lantern that appeared. The second time she tried to draw them, but her chalk smudged into yellow dust. Now, as years turn like pages, she simply watches with heart open wide, letting the sight carve a hollow of gentle ache beneath her ribs. She does not know who releases the lights or why they float in swirling bouquets exactly on her birthday, but something inside her thrums with recognition. When the lanterns rise, she feels less alone, as though every flickering flame calls her name in a language only her heart can hear. Sometimes, after the last lantern flickers out and the sky returns to its regular hush, Rapunzel cups her hands around a candle flame and whispers, "If you remember me, I remember you." She pictures a lakeside crowd holding their breath, watching the lanterns ascend, hoping each light will find its way to someone who needs it. She closes her eyes and wonders if a lantern might one day drift close enough for her to catch, so she could read the message surely written on its silk, proof that someone out there thinks of her too. Twilight brings small chores, trimming wicks, setting fresh candles on the mantel, tapping dust from book spines, and yet each motion feels gentler, guided by a hush that settles over the tower like downy feathers. She ties back her hair with a ribbon the color of faded lavender and builds a nest of pillows near the window. There, she settles with her notebook, recording dreams that surfaced during the day. A bridge woven from willow branches, a dancing bear who juggles starlight, a girl with hair so long it could loop the moon. She sketches until the lines blur, ink pooling in gentle pools like sleepy eyes. At last, evening fully arrives, a hush wrapped in velvet blue. Rapunzel lights a single candle on the sill, the wick sputtering before burning steady. She props her chin on her knees and gazes at the foreign constellations painted across the heavens. "Could the lights be for me?" she murmurs, words almost too soft to exist. The breeze answers by lifting the corner of a sketchbook page. Somewhere below, an owl sighs, and the forest accepts her question without judgment, because forests have heard every question there is. When the candle gutters low, she extinguishes it with a breath, and the tower returns to darkness lit only by moonwash. She lies on her back, hair fanned like gold leaf, and imagines each lantern again, but closer now, so close she can warm her palms around their glow. In her mind, she unties a ribbon fastening one lantern's base. A note unfurls, written in a hand both unfamiliar and urgently dear. "We see you. We are waiting." Sleep settles, soft and sure. Outside the tower, the forest sleeps too, though its dreams are different. Sap rising, roots drinking, crickets counting sparks. Above them all, the sky keeps its own vigil, spinning tomorrow into place. And somewhere in a lakeside kingdom Rapunzel does not yet know, lantern makers shape fresh reeds, stretch silk, and mix gold paint, preparing for the day when the lights must once again bear a message into the night. Morning will return, just as it always does. Sweep, brush, paint, gaze, wonder. Routines will rock her gently from dawn to dusk. But inside each small motion a larger dream unfurls, one that grows brighter whenever she asks her quiet question. Could they be for me? The tower cannot answer, and neither can the forest, but the lights themselves seem to wink from the past and promise from the future all at once. Keep wondering, keep watching. One day routine will break like dawn, and the world beyond the window will answer with open arms. The tower walls are cold stone by birth, but they have not been gray in many years. Rapunzel has turned them into silent skylines and glowing storybooks, canvas on canvas, dream on dream, so thoroughly that a stranger might forget there is rock beneath the color. She began with timid constellations, a sprinkle of white dots daubed above her bedside as if mapping a corner of heaven. Each dot carried a wish, each faint line a whispered promise. From that first shy spatter, the murals grew, curling across arches, slipping into alcoves, hopping the staircase, until every surface breathed with paint. She mixes her pigments the way other girls braid ribbons, patient, attentive, full of humming. Berries for midnight purples, crushed lilac petals for soft sunrise pinks, soot for the quiet shadows under moonlit branches. A mortar and pestle sing their stone song while she works, adding a spoon of melted candle wax to keep the hues velvety even in winter chill. When the fresh paint thickens to the texture of cream, she lifts a long-handled brush, taps once against a clay rim, and begins. On the tallest stretch of wall, lanterns bloom. Hundreds float upward in slow procession, glowing honey gold against a velvet sky so dark it seems to hum. Some lanterns drift close to the viewer, bright enough to warm your palms. Others lift beyond touching, blurred into gentle stars. Rapunzel paints each one with an aching tenderness, as though setting its tiny flame free all over again. She has never seen a lantern up close, but her every brushstroke curves with certainty. Silk sides, braided reed rims, tassels dancing like tiny comets. When she finishes a cluster, she steps back, heart fluttering, almost expecting real warmth to brush her cheek. Elsewhere, galaxies swirl in cerulean blues, their arms spiraling outward until they meet the freckled shoulders of distant mountains. She has never walked those peaks, yet she knows the echo of wind between crags, knows how stars sharpen in cold air, how snow crackles underfoot. In quiet hours, she sits before that painted range and inhales deeply, pretending the chill is real, that the tower floor is dusted in frost, that someone has built a small campfire just out of sight. But it is the kingdom mural that captivates her most. A sprawling city painted in gentle dusk, rooftops angling like folded wings, towers capped with copper domes, catching the last peach light. She has rendered every tiny window aglow, every cobblestone lane curling into the next, bridges arching over mirrored water, market stalls spilling basketfuls of citrus and crimson cloth. In the harbor, sails drift open in the hush of evening tide. The city is alive, alive in her mind long before her brush willed it onto stone. And each time she adds another detail. She feels the heartbeat of distant bells, the hush of twilight crowds, the hush 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 of a place that is waiting. Sometimes while filling in the vermilion glaze of a palace roof, Rapunzel whispers, "Have I been here?" The question echoes inside the tower but finds no answer. She only knows that the kingdom feels like a half-remembered melody, familiar enough to hum, mysterious enough to chase. Near the center of that mural sits a crown, resting on a velvet cushion the color of dawn. She painted it one summer afternoon without thinking, guided by something older than memory. The crown's curve fits her brush in a single motion. 7 slender peaks rise from a gold circlet, each peak tipped with a teardrop pearl. The pearls gleam as though reflecting candlelight no one has lit. When she first set down the brush and stepped back, a tingling started in her fingertips and raced to her heartbeat. She touched the crown with one careful finger and felt recognition bloom, like meeting someone whose face you cannot place, but whose laughter you loved once, long ago. That night, she dreamed of standing in a vast room lined with stained glass. Sunlight spilled through ruby and sapphire panes, scattering color across marble floors. As she turned, the crown lay upon a pillow at the room's center, waiting, as patient as moonrise. She reached for it in the dream, felt its cool weight, felt its shape slide perfectly into her palms, and woke with the impression of gold lingering on her skin. When she opened her eyes, the painted crown on the wall glinted in dawn light, and she breathed a shaky breath that rippled her braid like wind in wheat. Every mural has a counterpart in her journals. She keeps 3 thick ones now, spines cracked from love. The first sits on her bedside shelf, bound in faded green cloth. Its pages hold sketches of the forest as seen from her window. Leaf shapes, squirrel leaps, mossy textures, cloud formations catalogued like seashells. She calls it her outside book, facts gathered at a distance, a primer for the day she might walk barefoot through that world. The second journal she calls her almost remembered book. In it she writes fragments that arrive without warning. Blue carpet smells of beeswax and pine. Bell tower rings 8th stroke slower than the 7th. Hands on a velvet curtain, dust motes swirling, sun tastes like orange peel. She does not know why these scraps feel real, but they insist on being written. The pages are a treasure map pointing inward rather than out, marking places within her mind that she has not fully explored. The third is her dreamer's book, leather-bound and scented of lavender sachets Gothel once traded for in a distant market. Here she plans each new painting before it blooms on stone. She diagrams the angles of lantern light, labels potential color blends, firefly gold, harvest ember, and pens tiny notes to herself. Add more reflection in the water. Lanterns need friends. In the margins, she sketches characters too. A girl with twigs in her hair sailing a bottle boat. A boy tasting the wind like soup from a spoon. A queen whose tears fall upward and form new stars. Some mornings, the dreamer's book lies open on the desk like a tiny theater between performances, costumes strewn about the stage. To Rapunzel, creativity is more than pastime. It is doorway, telescope, and lullaby in one. When she paints, she does not merely pass hours. She steps through her own brushstrokes to stand in streets painted of memory and moon dust. She can almost smell warm bread from market stalls, feel cobblestones beneath soles, hear the hushed swirl of water licking harbor pilings. Each color becomes a conversation. Indigo asks how tall the waves are tonight. Ochre wonders if the wheat is ready to harvest. Rose gold hums a wedding dance tune from a palace she has never visited yet somehow knows by heart. Even her solitude becomes collaborator. The tower's silence encourages detail. The echo of her breath reminds her to pause and consider the shimmer on a lantern, the curve of a bridge railing. With no one to rush her, she paints until the world inside the stones feels as complete as any world pressed against them from without. Mother Gothel sees only practicality. Paint if you must, she mutters while sorting vegetables. But remember that dreams cannot feed you. Rapunzel nods politely, yet her brush does not slow. For she understands something Gothel never will, that hunger is not always for food, and nourishment can sometimes be found in pigments and imagination. A well-fed spirit, she thinks, can light an entire sky. By twilight, lanterns on her mural begin to gleam in the dimming light of real candles. Rapunzel stands before the wall barefoot, brush poised, adding a fingertip of pale silver to a lantern rim. The silver catches the candle's glow and winks back at her like a secret friend. She smiles, sighs, and lowers the brush. Pulling her braid over one shoulder, she whispers to the painted horizon, "Until tomorrow." The paint glistens wet, fresh, alive, its colors softening as candles fade. Later, when the moon balances on the tower's rim and moth wings tap the window pane, Rapunzel opens her almost remembered book to a blank page. She writes in looping script. Crown feels familiar. Why? Lanterns feel like hands reaching. Who? Kingdom looks like home, seen in a dream. She taps the quill, lets a droplet of ink fall, watching it bloom like a midnight flower. Then she adds, below the blot, a question that has followed her since childhood. If walls can remember color, Can I remember a life beyond them? She closes the journal with a gentle thump, sets it under her pillow, and curls into darkness. Outside, the forest breathes. Inside, the murals glow faintly, holding vigil over her sleep. They are more than decorations. They are breadcrumbs leading into tomorrow. One day, perhaps, she will step beyond the tower door and discover that the world greeted her long before she arrived. Each lantern, each star, each silent crown waiting patiently in paint until reality caught up with color. Until then, her creativity remains the truest window she owns, and every time she lifts a brush, that window widens, inch by bright inch, until even the stone itself seems to lean closer, eager to see what memory she will paint next. Mother Gothel's visits arrive like clock chimes muffled by moss, predictable, inevitable, impossible to stop. The bell cord trembles on its hidden pulley, and Rapunzel lowers her long plate with careful hands, feeling the familiar tug of Gothel's ascent. As soon as the wooden shutter swings inward, the tower's air changes. Candle smoke thinning, lavender hush replaced by the sharper scent of travel. Damp cloak, crushed fern, the faintest tang of market spice. Gothel steps onto the stone floor, boots clicking once before she softens her stance and rearranges her smile into something that means authority, draped in comfort. She sets down baskets, straightens her cloak, smooths Rapunzel's cheek with cool fingertips. Then the warnings begin. "People want your magic," she says, in the same tone others might use for "mind the step" or "don't touch the fire." "They will cut your hair. They will lock you in cages. They will hurt you, flower, just to keep your glow for themselves." The words fall gentle but heavy, like snowflakes weighted with iron. She repeats them while unpacking supplies: sun-dried tomatoes in oil, fresh parchment rolls, a bundle of flax for thread. Each item becomes a prop in the lesson. This is the bread they will steal from your plate. This is the ink they will use to sign their lies. This is the rope they will bind you with once your hair is theirs. Rapunzel nods. She has practiced this response as diligently as brushing. Gratitude warms her lips into a polite smile. Fear pricks the tender space between heartbeat and breath. Curiosity flutters behind her ribs like a moth searching for light it cannot name. She thanks Gothel for the honeycomb, for the new book of riddles, for the spool of silver thread. Inside, a different voice whispers, "What if they want more than magic? What if they want friendship? Music? Laughter?" She folds that voice beneath layers of obedience, pressing until it lies flat and silent, at least until twilight. Because twilight is when Gothel sings. It begins the moment she sees a wrinkle of fatigue at the edge of her own reflection, be it in Rapunzel's silvered brush handle or the polished kettle lid. She gathers the golden braid like a silk rope, coils it across her lap, and hums 3 testing notes that taste like old dust and violets. The tower hushes, even the birds tucking heads beneath wings. Rapunzel kneels on woven rugs, gaze lowered, hair unspooling toward Gothel's waiting hands. She feels the familiar chill of duty slide through her scalp, though on the surface everything seems gentle. "Flower, gleam and glow," Gothel sings, voice no louder than a moth's wing. The melody drifts through the room, soft and eerie, equal parts lullaby and incantation. Candles flicker in sync with each syllable, their flames leaning forward as if listening. Light swells within Rapunzel's hair, threads of warm gold pulsing outward until each strand is a slender sunbeam. The glow illuminates Gothel's face, smoothing fine lines, painting her skin with false dawn. Shadows under her eyes dissolve, silver streaks retreat from her hair, posture straightens like a young tree after rain. The transformation is subtle but decisive, as sure as tides reshaping shorelines. Rapunzel does not resist. She feels the warmth radiate outward, But inside, another sort of weather gathers, gray and cool, like mist rising from a river at dawn. She wonders, if my hair is bright enough to heal another's age, why does the glow leave my own heart dim? Yet she keeps her silence, keeps her smile. Questioning would sound ungrateful, and Gothel often reminds her that gratitude is a shield. Be thankful, dear, and you will be safe. So Rapunzel molds her lips into thank you curves even while her spirit curls tight as a leaf under frost. When the song ends, the light dwindles, and the braid returns to ordinary gold. Gothel pats Rapunzel's head, rising with renewed grace, adjusting her cloak at a mirror that now flatters her youthfulness. She offers shallow praise. Such a good girl, keeping mother young, and pretends not to notice the flicker of weariness in Rapunzel's eyes. The tower door closes behind her, rope ladder whisked away, and the hush returns, deeper now for everything it has witnessed. Rapunzel stands alone at the window, moonlight brushing her cheek where Gothel's fingers once pressed. She watches the forest breathe, thinks of lanterns breathing sky, thinks of a crown resting on a pillow of dawn-colored velvet. Gratitude? Yes, she owes Gothel her life, her shelter, her books, her paints. Fear? Yes, because the outside world is an echo chamber for Gothel's warnings. But curiosity rises between those pillars like a growing vine, green and stubborn. It winds around her doubts, peeking through cracks in certainty, whispering, what if there is kindness beyond the tree line? What if the world's dangers are only half the story? She hugs herself, feeling the last warmth of the song fade from her scalp. Somewhere below, an owl calls. Somewhere beyond, waves crash on shores she has never seen. She remembers a phrase from one of her journals, if walls can remember color, can I remember a life beyond them? And she closes her eyes, testing it against the night. Her heart answers with a slow, hopeful thud. Still, when daylight returns, she will greet Gothel with the practiced smile. She will sweep, paint, sing hymns to the birds. She will listen to the warnings. They'll hurt you, they'll take your light, and nod at each one like a page learning his catechism. Because doubt kept hidden can sometimes bloom in secret, gathering strength until the hour arrives to break stone. For now, the rules remain carved into the day's routine. Never leave the tower. Never talk to strangers who find their way below. Never ask where mother goes or why she's gone so long. Always let your hair down when mother calls. Always thank her for her care, her warnings, her love. Rapunzel recites them silently while winding her braid into a loose coil for sleep. She tucks a fresh journal page under her pillow, one that reads simply, in moonlit ink. If gratitude and fear live side by side, perhaps curiosity can be their bridge. Then she drifts into dreams laced with lanterns and open gates, her smile gentle but her mind bright as dawn behind closed lids. The morning begins like any other, soft gray dawn diffusing through the lone window, wind combing the treetops, Rapunzel's broom whispering across flagstones. She has just finished sweeping when a flick of motion snags the corner of her eye. A small shadow darts past the sill, circles back, and lands with a quick, decisive hop. A bird, a robin, no larger than her palm, breast the color of sunset marmalade, tilts its head at her. Its black bead eyes are bright, unblinking, fearless. And around its left ankle, tied in a loose bow, flutters a narrow ribbon of palest blue. Rapunzel freezes, brush bristles suspended midair. Birds often perch near the window, but they never carry gifts. She sets the broom aside, approaches slowly, hands open as though cupping a secret. The robin hops nearer instead of away, tiny claws tapping the stone ledge. Each hop jingles the ribbon's knot, a silken whisper of somewhere else. Hello there, she breathes. Her voice feels larger than the room. Where did you come from? The bird chirrups, a bright, questioning trill then ruffles its feathers as if inviting inspection of the bow it wears. Rapunzel's heart tugs. Someone far beyond these walls must have tied that ribbon. Someone kind enough to handle a fragile creature gently. Someone adventurous enough to send it skyward. The thought swells behind her ribs like the first chord of an unfamiliar song. She stares at the ribbon's ends, frayed just a little, scented faintly of salt and rosemary. Two smells she knows only from descriptions in her herb encyclopedia. This is proof, tangible, fluttering proof, that the world outside is not only real but close enough to knock on her window. Rapunzel cups her hands beneath the sill and whispers, "Thank you for visiting me." The robin hops onto her palm, so light it's like holding a breath. She lifts it carefully into the room and sets it on the small work table near her paint pots. It flits once, then settles amid jars of cobalt and ochre, unbothered by the smell of linseed oil. With trembling excitement, she unspools a length of golden embroidery thread from her sewing basket, snips a strip of parchment no longer than a child's finger, and writes in her neatest hand, "Who ties ribbons in your land? What lies beyond my tower? If you can, bring me a glimpse." She rolls the parchment tight, wraps it around the robin's ankle above the blue bow, and knots it without restricting the bird's movement. A gentle cuff of question. Her braid brushes the tabletop as she bends. Her cheeks glow as though lantern lit. The robin watches her, head cocked, then gives one brisk flap. Feathers brush her knuckles like satin. Back at the window, a dawn breeze carries the hum of distant cicadas. Rapunzel lifts her hand. "Fly safely," she whispers, "and return if you wish." The bird launches, one swift beat, two, and is gone, a spark of copper weaving through green. She stands long after it vanishes, palms still cradling the shape of weightlessness. Days stretch across the sky like loops of thread pulled taut. Rapunzel's routines continue, sweeping, brushing, painting, but each task feels porous, half done, as if waiting for a final stitch. She drifts to the window again and again, scanning clouds for a fleck of flame. At night, she presses ear to stone, wondering if robin wings make sound in darkness. Curiosity rattles inside her like beads in a jar. Gothel notices the distraction. "Eyes on your knitwork, flower," she chides while winding Rapunzel's glowing braid around her own wrists for the nightly song. Rapunzel nods, forces stillness, but a seed of defiance germinates beneath her calm expression. She is no longer satisfied with warnings alone. She has sent a question into the world, and she means to hear its answer. On the third afternoon, thunderclouds gather at the horizon, low purple bellies rolling toward the tower. Rapunzel stands by her mural of lanterns blending a new violet. Cling in blending a new violet, matching the storm's fringe, when a rapid tapping cracks the hush. She wheels to the window. There, soaked but resolute, the robin clings to the sill. Its feathers cling in damp spikes. Its beak grasps something delicate, pale and trembling, a flower unlike any color Rapunzel has mixed before. She gasps, racing forward. The robin hops inside, drops its treasure onto her waiting palm. The blossom is about the size of a silver coin, 5 petals shaped like tiny seashells, glowing faintly at their tips with a shimmer that reminds her of moonlit water. Its fragrance is crisp, stone and sea and spring at once. She has never seen its likeness in any botanical scroll. Tied to the stem with a new loop of ribbon is her parchment strip, unfurled. Someone has written beneath her ink in tiny script. Beyond the forest lies the sea. Lanterns rise where longing lives. Come see for yourself. A friend. Rapunzel's breath catches. She reads the message twice, then presses the paper to her chest as if storing it beneath her heartbeat. Her eyes blur with sudden tears, of confirmation, of invitation, of wonder too large for her ribcage. She brings the flower to her nose, inhales, and feels the scent travel through her veins, lighting them with electrical possibility. The petal's edges glow faintly, almost. She laughs at the thought, almost like her own hair when Gothel sings, but gentler, less commanded, more free. The robin shakes water from its wings, splattering specks of storm water across the desk. Rapunzel wipes them with a corner of her apron and whispers, "Thank you, brave one." She strokes its head, it chirps approval. Then it flutters to the open paint shelf and pecks at a jar of sap green, leaving a tiny beak mark like a signature. For the next hour, Rapunzel hovers between joy and careful thought. She presses the blossom between pages of the almost remembered book, saving its color. She rereads the note until the ink pattern etches behind her eyelids. She sets quill to new parchment, but pauses. How does she answer an invitation the tower forbids her to accept? The robin, perched on a curtain rod, seems to wait. She writes, "I long to see the sea and lanterns, but stone surrounds me. Tell me, can courage pierce stone? A girl in the tower." She ties the note with trembling fingers, adds a single golden hair for luck, and fastens it to the bird's ribbon. The robin chirps, 2 quick notes like agreement, and departs, leaving a faint draft of storm-cool air in its wake. Rapunzel watches it disappear into roiling clouds. Thunder rumbles, but her fear feels smaller now, thin as old thread. In its place blooms exhilaration, an interior sunrise she cannot paint fast enough. She races to a blank stretch of wall and begins sketching waves in sweeping arcs, turquoise foaming into white, a skyline punctuated by slender towers and, yes, thousands of lanterns rising like pollen of light. At the water's edge, she places a small figure, hair whipping in ocean wind, arms wide to greet possibility. When dusk falls, she lingers by the window. Lightning forks across distant cumulonimbus, revealing fleeting silhouettes of mountain ridges she's only painted in fantasy. Each flash writes the horizon in silver, as if the world is signing its name, promising, "I am real. Come find me." She holds the pressed flower to her heart before tucking it beneath her pillow. Its glow dims with each breath, yet she can feel it pulsing softly, mirroring her quickened pulse. The tower seems less solid tonight, more like a veil, something thin enough for voices to pass through, and perhaps bodies too. Rapunzel curls into sleep with a half smile, no longer hiding doubts but weaving them into dreams. Outside, the storm wanders off, leaving the forest slick and gleaming under new stars. Somewhere overhead, a robin cuts through damp air, ribbon trailing like a comet's tail, carrying a question brighter than lightning. Can courage pierce stone? The sky, deep and patient, prepares an answer. The robin's visit leaves the tower thrumming with possibility. Each morning, Rapunzel wakes to the gentle ache of something new budding behind her ribs, a restlessness that flutters through her bones like unseen wings. She catches herself pacing between murals, fingertips trailing paint-scented air, eyes flicking to the window so often that even the ivy seems to tilt, curious. One cloud-polished afternoon, as the sun slants through the arch in molten streaks, she pauses before her mirror. Her braid, thick as a sailor's rope, coils across the floor in lazy spirals, then slips beneath the bed and out the far side like a golden serpent seeking an exit. How long, she wonders, has her hair been quietly outgrowing the tower's stories? A spark lights behind her eyes. She fetches a bundle of flax thread, the fine measuring cord Gothel once brought for embroidery. Knot by knot she marks every arm's length along her braid. 1, 2, 3. The numbers climb, whispering higher than her voice ever dares. She circles the stairwell, cord ticking through fingers, until the final knot slips from her grasp near the far wall. Breath held, she pulls the cord taut across the room, anchors it to the windowsill, and peers over the edge. The thread drops and drops. Past damp stone, past ivy leaves quivering in green astonishment, all the way to a moss-soft patch of earth 30 feet below. Rapunzel's pulse pounds. She tugs gently, picturing her own braid in place of the cord, picturing it touching soil that has never felt her shadow. A dizzy thrill dances up her spine. Longer than the tower, she mouths, as though saying it might unravel the spell that holds her here. Curiosity soon transforms into experiment. She rummages through her sewing basket for a small willow-woven hamper, the one she uses for stray yarn, and knots it to the end of the measuring cord. At first, she lowers only a paintbrush, its bristles fanning like a tiny flag of peace. Hand over hand, she feeds the line through her palms, feeling each knot slide by. The basket drifts downward, swinging in cautious arcs, until it bumps the forest floor with a muted thud. Heartbeat quick, she lets it rest a moment, then draws it back up. The brush returns, dusted with earth and scent, its wooden handle smeared moss green. She gasps, delighted. That smear is proof. Her tower can touch the world. Next, she dares a heavier payload, a moss-green candle she carved with tiny stars. The basket dips, sways, cord strains but holds. When she reels it up, the candle is cool, but its wick carries a faint perfume of pine resin. She presses it to her nose, closing her eyes, imagining tall trunks and sun-dappled needles beneath her bare feet. The tower walls feel suddenly porous, as if breeze can slip between the stones. Days blur into a secret rhythm of trials. She lowers spools of thread, walnut shells filled with dried petals, even a silver thimble. Each time, the earth below receives her offering with patience and returns it touched by unknown textures: grit, leaf dust, the sweet spice of damp bark. She scribbles observations in her dreamer's book, sketching pulley diagrams, noting cord tensions, testing different knots. Science, she thinks, is merely curiosity wearing work gloves. Yet a larger question thrums louder with every experiment. Could I lower myself? The thought peeks around corners while she sweeps, hums behind lullabies, gleams in the wet sheen of fresh paint. She pictures looping her braid over the bedpost, tying the free end around her waist, and slipping out the window like a comet tail of gold. The forest would greet her with fox-brushed trails and fern-soft steps. The canopy would swallow her in green hush. She might walk to the lake where lanterns rise, might dip fingers into water that has mirrored her dreams for years. But with the dream comes its shadow. She imagines Gothel tugging the bell cord, finding no braid to climb, jaw tightening into thundercloud fury. She hears warnings repeated. They'll cut your hair. They'll hurt you. Now echoing off the forest floor instead of safe stone. What if the cord frays? What if knots slip? What if the world below is sharper than her hope? One evening, with dusk shading the mural's violet, Rapunzel tests weight more daringly. She fills the basket with 3 apples and a small flask of water, roughly her own heft, she guesses, and lowers it hand over cautious hand. The cord creaks but does not snap. Still, when she hauls the load back, her palms burn and her breath trembles. Strength may not be the problem, she realizes. Courage is the rope that feels thinnest. That night, she dreams she has descended. In the dream, her feet touch moss, and the earth sighs a welcome. A path of lanterns snakes through trees, guiding her toward laughter drifting from a distant shore. She follows, heart buoyant, until shadows gather. Hooded figures reaching for her braid, knives glinting like broken moonbeams. She tries to run, but her braid tangles around roots. The forest floor turns to mirrors, reflecting her fear in endless eyes. She wakes with a gasp. Fingers knotted in sheets, the tower's darkness thick as warning. Morning finds her subdued. She braids her hair slowly, knots the end with extra care, and lets it rest across the floor without touching baskets or measuring cords. She paints instead, widening the sea on her kingdom mural, adding safe harbors and gentle tides, as though giving her dream self a place to shelter. When she gazes at the painted horizon, her heartbeat steadies. The tide inside her recedes to a thoughtful hush. Not today, she decides, but maybe one day. For hope, she realizes, is not a single leap. It is a rope woven strand by strand. Curiosity, experiment, doubt, and daring, all twisting together until the braid is strong enough to bear a heart. At sunset, she stands at the window and lets her hair cascade outward. The golden river spills past ivy leaves, shimmering in orange light, brushing ferns below before curling on the moss like sunlit water. She does not climb, but she listens, to the forest's hushed applause, to the distant hum of insects, to the silent question hanging in the glow. When? A breeze lifts the braid, tugging gently, playful, patient. She draws it back in, winding it around her arms, feeling its heft as both tether and promise. Then she ties a simple ribbon, blue like the robins, to the very tip, a small flag for freedom yet to come. As she coils the braid beside her bed, she whispers, "Soon." The word is soft, hardly more than breath, but it rings in the stone like a chime of new metal. Fear still lives in the tower, but it no longer rules alone. It shares space with planning, with memory of pine-scented candles and moss-dusted brushes, with the vibrant hush of a world that has already touched her hands. Hope, clever and patient, measures itself alongside her hair, growing a little longer each day, waiting for the moment when length and courage meet. For now, Rapunzel sleeps beneath a sky painted on her ceiling, stars glowing faintly in moonlight. She dreams of leaving, not forever, just once, enough to taste sea wind, to feel lantern warmth, to stand where earth meets sky with nothing but her own heartbeat to measure distance. And though dawn will wake her to familiar stone, the ribbon at her braid's end will whisper its silent color. The world is real. The basket proved it. The cord held steady, and bravery, like hair, can be braided a little longer tomorrow. Night settles like velvet over the forest, and the tower listens. Ivy leaves rustling, an owl shifting on knotted pine, the distant sigh of river water twisting through roots. Rapunzel has just extinguished her last candle when a new sound threads the hush. The brittle snap of a twig beneath something heavier than foxes or wind. She freezes on her way to bed, pulse thudding in her ears. Another snap, closer. A muttered oath drifts up the tower wall, chased by the scrape of leather against rough stone. For a heartbeat, she wonders if Gothel has returned early. But the voice is younger, edged with mischief, not reprimand. She tiptoes to the window and peers down through moon-washed leaves. There, half hidden by ivy, someone climbs. He moves with the confidence of a man who has scaled many walls, yet every so often his boot scrapes, sending pebbles tinkling into darkness. A satchel bumps against his hip. A rolled parchment juts from one side, glimmering under starlight like a treasure map. He mutters again, Something about complicated hideouts and should have taken the left fork. Then, with a final grunt, he hauls himself to the sill and swings inside before Rapunzel can gather a single coherent thought. She steps backward, heart hammered thin, searching for anything sturdy. Her fingers find the cast iron frying pan hanging near the stove. She has used it to flip berry pancakes and toast seeds. Tonight, it will serve a newer, more urgent purpose. The intruder lands softly on the floor, dusting ivy strands from a mop of dark hair. He is taller than any character she has ever painted, lean as a startled stag, with a grin already half-formed on his lips, as though scaling towers is simply another party trick. "Well, would you look at..." Thunk. The frying pan connects with a hollow ring. His eyes widen, surprise outrunning pain. Then he crumples to the rug in a sprawl of limbs, satchel skittering across stone. Rapunzel's breath rushes out like steam from a kettle. She backs away, pan poised for a second strike, waiting for movement. None comes. Only the hush steps forward again, settling over the fallen stranger. Lamplight pools around his outstretched hand, revealing worn leather gloves, a scuffed buckle, and a single golden coin that had slipped from his palm onto the floor. Not a soldier. Not a hunter. A traveler, perhaps a thief, caught mid-escape. She crouches, curiosity poking through fear. His face, slack in unconsciousness, seems almost boyish. A faint smudge of dirt stripes his cheek. A strand of hair curls over one eyebrow like a question mark. She nudges him gently with the pan. Still nothing. The owl outside hoots, sounding mildly impressed. Rapunzel's gaze drifts to the satchel lying nearby. Adventure hums inside its seams. She lifts it, careful of squeaking buckles, and peers within. A silver crown too small for a king yet too grand for a peasant. The rolled parchment she glimpsed. A wanted poster bearing the stranger's own face and an outrageous reward. And a small pouch of gems that wink like midnight rainbows. Her fingers tremble as she closes the flap. Stories from her books parade through her thoughts. Brigands, treasure hunters, charming rogues who trade secrets by moonlight. She tucks the satchel behind a stack of paint jars, heart pounding at her own daring. Then she returns to the unconscious traveler, kneels, and presses 2 fingers to his neck the way medical chapters instruct. Pulse, strong. Breathing, steady. Fear softens, replaced by electric curiosity. This is a piece of the world she has only imagined. After a minute, the stranger groans. Eyelids flutter, revealing hazel eyes flecked with gold. He shifts, winces, sits up slowly, rubbing the back of his head. "Easy," Rapunzel warns, brandishing the frying pan anew. He squints at her, then at the pan, then back. "You know," he says, voice gravelly but light, "most people welcome guests with tea." "Most guests knock at the door," she whispers, though there is no door down below. Words feel shaky but bold in her mouth. He rolls a shoulder, assessing surroundings. A tower room glowing with murals, shelves of books, a girl in a nightgown holding the deadliest cookware he's ever seen. "Point taken," he concedes. "Flynn Rider, at your service." He attempts a bow from the floor. It ends in a wince. "Why are you here?" she asks, tightening her grip. "Funny story," he begins, scanning for exits. "I was running from some overenthusiastic palace guards, took a wrong turn, found a convenient vine ladder. Next thing I know, bonky gestures at her pan. Your hospitality's overwhelming." Rapunzel's mind races. Palace guards, crown, wanted poster. He is danger, but not the knife-wielding villain of Gothel's warnings. Rather, a breathing atlas of roads she longs to walk. She lowers the pan an inch. "You climbed here? By accident?" "Accident adjacent," he admits. "The hiding place seemed brilliant until it went vertical." Rapunzel swallows, recalling her own measured cord, her basket experiments. If he could climb up, perhaps he could guide her down. Lanterns flash across her thoughts, 1,000 gold blooms floating through night. She squares her shoulders. I won't hurt you if you answer honestly. He raises both hands. By all means, interrogate away. Those lights in the sky, she blurts. The ones released every year, do you know them? Flynn's brow furrows. You mean the Lantern Festival? Sure. Happens in the kingdom each year on the princess's birthday. Big spectacle. Lots of sentimental singing. Lovely date night, if you're into crowds. Princess's birthday. The phrase coils around her heartbeat, the date aligning with her own, the forgotten lullabies of palace halls that echo in her murals. Her grip loosens on the pan. Hope floods in. I have to see them, she whispers, half to herself. Then louder. Will you take me to the lights? Flynn blinks. Pardon? She rushes on before fear can chase courage back into hiding. Take me to the festival. I'll return your satchel when we get there. She nods toward the paint jars. He follows her gaze, noticing the absent bag. The corners of his mouth twitch. You hit it, he says, something like admiration in his tone. I did. For leverage? For assurance? She lifts her chin. No satchel until I see the lights. He considers, calculating risk, reward, distance, guards, the throb at the back of his skull. Finally, he releases a soft laugh, rubbing the bruise. You're surprisingly formidable. I'm determined, she corrects. Same thing, in my experience. He stands carefully, testing balance. Fine, deal. Lights, merriment, heartfelt ooh and ahs, then bag. Relief and terror braid within her like twin threads. She almost expects Gothel to burst through the window on a storm cloud of outrage. But only the owl watches, silent witness to bargains. Rapunzel lowers the pan fully, breath shaky. We leave at first light. Wouldn't dream of rushing off without breakfast, Flynn says, stretching. She nods, then gestures to a cupboard. Blankets are there if you need rest. Hospitality, like hope, feels new but right. He retrieves a wool blanket, mock salutes, and collapses onto a chaise near the murals, eyes drifting over painted lanterns. Nice artwork, he murmurs, already half asleep. You've got talent, Blondie. She blushes at the nickname, but lets it stand. Crossing to the satchel, she checks the latch once more, then hides it among rolled canvases. Her heart beats thunder beneath calm surface. Her mind races ahead, down ivy, across forest, along lantern-lit rivers. She curls onto her bed, braid pooled like molten gold, and stares at ceiling constellations. A stranger lies dozing 15 steps away, and outside, the world waits. Fear still prowls, but excitement burns brighter, casting bolder shadows. She closes her eyes to a future painted in motion, tree-lined paths, markets buzzing, sky blooming gold. Below, the forest hushes toward dawn. Above, stars blink approval. And within the tower walls, a promise takes root, strong as ivy, bright as lanterns. Tomorrow, she will begin to climb out of stories and into life. Dawn arrives trembling with hush, as though the forest itself anticipates something extraordinary. Rapunzel stands at the window, braid looped around a sturdy roof beam, fingertips fluttering over the knots Flynn showed her during the night. Below, dew pearls on fern fronds and spider webs, each droplet catching sunrise like a jewel. The tower has never seemed so tall, or so small. Flynn tightens the last knot around a wooden bedpost, tugs twice, and nods. All right, Blondie, he whispers. Moment of truth. Her heart drums in every bone. She climbs onto the sill. Wind slides cool across her cheeks. Scents of wet bark and wild mint lift to greet her as if she already belongs. She inhales so deeply it almost hurts, then grips the golden rope of her own hair and lowers herself hand under hand, breath punctuating each knot. 1, 2, 3. The tower's gray stones glide past her gaze. Ivy brushes her calves like a blessing. For a dizzy second, she imagines the braid snapping, but the weave holds, firm with hope and beeswax. Her feet meet moss so softly the earth seems to sigh. She stands, barefoot, blinking, on ground she has only ever painted. The moss yields under her weight, cool and spongy, sending a chill up her spine that turns into a giggle before she can swallow it. She twirls once, arms wide, braid trailing like a comet's tail. Overhead, blue sky stretches farther than any mural wall, and sunlight pinpricks through leaves in fitful sequins. Flynn drops beside her, landing with the practiced ease of a man who has jumped from too many balconies. "Not bad," he murmurs, but his grin fades as he watches her eyes widen. Every stimulus arrives amplified. A wren's trill ricochets through the canopy, echoing in her ribcage. The smell of damp soil rushes up as though the ground breathes stories. A beetle scrambles over a pebble. She crouches, fascinated by the sheen of its shell, then straightens and gasps at the bark pattern on a nearby oak, grooves deep enough to hide entire villages of ants. Her world has exploded into texture. She presses palms to the grass, letting blades slip between fingers. The cold kiss of dew shocks her skin. She laughs, a sound so crystal bright that even Flynn glances toward the sky, half expecting it to rain bells. She scoops a handful of grass, lifts it to her nose, and inhales until lungs brim with green sweetness. Then she runs. Feet slap damp earth, slide through fallen leaves, skim patches of moss like ships over gentle seas. She darts around a cedar, jumps a rotting log, whoops when a startled rabbit streaks across her path. Hair streams behind her in a golden banner, catching twigs and petals that cling like confetti. Flynn jogs after, breathless, though not from exertion. He watches the way she leaps, as if gravity were merely a rumor. Rapunzel's dash ends at the edge of a brook no wider than her bed. Water chuckles over pebbles, sunlight diamonds skipping along its surface. She kneels, touches the current. Sensation floods her fingertips. Icy, swift, exhilarating. She cups water, lets it pour back through her hands, then splashes her face, yelping with delight at the shock. Droplets cling to her lashes. The world refracts into kaleidoscopes of gold and jade. She dips again, sipping. The taste is clean, stony, alive. Joy surges so fiercely it spins into guilt. Gothel's voice creeps in. "The world will hurt you." She pictures the tower, lonely against sky, and the braid hanging vacant. What if Mother returns now and finds only empty air? What if lanterns disappoint? Her chest tightens, laughter hitches. She withdraws her hands from the stream, wiping them on her dress, suddenly aware of mud streaks, of rule-breaking footprints pressing into forbidden ground. Flynn squats beside her, quiet. "Hey," he says gently. "You all right?" She nods too quickly. "It's wonderful," she whispers, but worry shadows her words. Goosebumps rise on her arms despite sunlit warmth. She hugs herself, knees to chest, eyes drifting back toward the distant tower spire just visible above treetops. Flynn follows her gaze. "Leaving home's a shock," he offers, voice softer than she's heard it. "First time I ran away, I got 2 miles before I missed the smell of my guardian's stew." He chuckles. "Never thought I'd confess that." He tilts his head. "But you're not alone, remember? I'm here. And I promise, the lanterns are worth it." Rapunzel swallows. Joy and guilt wrestle behind her ribs, but joy is stubborn, bright as lantern flame. She looks at the stream again. In its mirror, she sees a girl with eyes alight, mud on her skirt, dreams in her teeth. The image thrills her. She stands, letting water drip from her fingers, and a heartbeat later she's laughing once more, so sudden that Flynn startles, then grins. They follow the brook downstream, her steps tentative at first, then bold. She's mesmerized by everything: the tacky pull of tree sap when she brushes a trunk, the buzz of a dragonfly darting like emerald lightning, the cedar-sweet hush of needles underfoot. She pauses every few yards to catalog sensations aloud. The wind tickles like a feather fan. That stone feels like forgotten ice. The sun smells of warm apples. Flynn listens, fascinated. It is as if he's seeing the forest newly mirrored in her wonder. At a clearing, dew-heavy grass ripples under breeze. She kicks off into a spin, dress swirling, hair orbiting like a comet's ring. Momentum topples her into soft earth. She lands with a thud and a peal of laughter that startles finches from bushes. Flynn's chuckle joins hers. He offers a hand, but she waves him off, lying flat, staring skyward through cathedral leaves. Light filters green and gold, patterning her face with shifting mosaics. Tears spring, joyful, bewildered, and she lets them slip, uncaring of streaks. "I feel wide," she murmurs. "Like my heart grew bigger than my skin." Flynn sits cross-legged. "That's freedom," he says. "Gets messy. Worth it." Clouds drift high above, white ships sailing in azure sea. Rapunzel traces shapes: a lamb, a crown, a lantern cluster. Guilt tugs, a reminder of rules broken, but each cloud drifts onward, dissolving. Maybe rules can dissolve too, she thinks, if sunlight is strong enough. She sits up, brushing grass from her hair. What's next? "We follow the river to the road," Flynn answers. "Then a day's journey to the kingdom." "A whole day," she repeats, tasting the length like caramel on her tongue. 24 hours of color, noise, touch. Excitement flares anew. They rise. Rapunzel steps forward, then stops. She kneels, palms flat on grass, and presses her forehead gently to earth. "Thank you," she whispers, to moss, to water, to sky, for welcoming her first steps. When she stands, laughter flits at the corner of her lips like a captive butterfly set free. Flynn hands her a walking stick whittled from birch. "For balance," he says. She tests it, nods, and sets off, barefoot still, savoring every grain of soil, every prick of twig, every living heartbeat of ground beneath. With each stride, guilt fades, replaced by a steady thrum of daring. For the first time, she believes the world might want her not for her magic, but for her wonder. Flynn follows a step behind, watching her trail of delight. To him, she glows brighter than the braids she carries. Each gasp, each grin, a lantern rising in daylight. He thinks of the satchel still hidden in the tower, of crowns and wanted posters. But those worries shrink beside the panorama unfolding in her eyes. He has stolen many things, but never a view like this. They reach a bend where the river widens into a glass-smooth pool. Rapunzel gasps, drops the stick, and walks straight in. Water swirls around ankles, calves, knees, cold, electric. She splashes, spins, sends arcs of diamond spray skyward. Flynn laughs outright. Her joy is contagious. She cups water and flings it at him. He feigns outrage, steps in, retaliates with a gentle splash. Soon, both are soaked, hair plastered, clothes clinging, laughter echoing across mirrored water like bells rung for no reason but celebration. When at last they wade out, dripping, Rapunzel wrinkles her nose at Flynn's soggy boots. "Try barefoot," she advises, and he relents, peeling leather away to feel mud squish between toes, surprised by the pleasure. They resume walking, sun drying their clothes in warm caresses. Forest thins, a dirt path appears, curling toward distant meadows. Rapunzel glances back once. The tower spire peaks above treetops, a lone candle in daylight. She lifts her hand, not in farewell, but in promise. I will return, but changed. Then she faces forward, chest blooming with possibility, and steps onto the road. Each stride is a word in a story she's now writing with muscle, breath, and laughter. The world greets her with song, wind through wheat, lark trills overhead, river hush beside. And for the first time ever, the melody plays not just beyond stone walls, but within her. Wild, unfinished, perfect. Afternoon light slants amber when the forest track spills onto a rutted wagon road. Ahead, a weather-beaten sign creaks. The snuggly duckling, a cartoonish fowl, too round, too smug, brandishes a tankard of ale. Rapunzel's brow lifts. Charming, Flynn mutters, shepherding her beneath the sagging awning. The interior feels carved from an old ship. Low beams, soot-black rafters, lanterns that leak more smoke than light, tankards thunk on scarred tables, dice clatter. Somewhere a lute twangs off-key. Yet what freezes Rapunzel mid-step are the patrons. Hulking shapes in patchwork leather, tattooed arms knotted like tree roots, faces boasting scars big enough to cast shadows. One man spits an entire tooth into a spittoon, another sharpens an axe longer than her leg. Flynn angles his body protectively. Stay close, we'll slip out the back before they know. Too late. Chats cease, tankards pause mid-swig. Dozens of eyes pivot toward the slim girl in earth-stained dress and the lanky rogue at her side. The din collapses into a silence so thick, Rapunzel hears her own pulse. A brute with a hooked nose and braided beard lumbers forward. Fresh bait, boys, he rasps. His breath smells of onions assassinated in cheap ale. What brings a daisy like you to our thorn patch? Rapunzel's fingers flutter toward her braid, a habit when nerves prickle. But she straightens. The robin, the brook, the grass underfoot. All those firsts whisper courage now. She draws one steady breath and answers. I'm chasing a dream. Her voice wobbles, yet rings clear. Laughter erupts, a harsh metallic chorus. Tankards bang. Flynn's hand twitches toward his hidden dagger. Escape routes map themselves in his mind. But Rapunzel's eyes crest over the sea of beards and scars and see something else. Weariness, disappointment, stories halted mid-sentence. Dreams, she realizes, do not die. They merely bunker down behind wary faces. She steps onto an overturned barrel, gaining inches of height. The thugs blink, confused. She hums a single note, soft, shimmering, a tone she once used to soothe robins. Sound spirals upward, brushing rafters, drifting like lantern light. Roughneck brows crease. Then she sings. The melody unfurls clean and hopeful, words weaving through smoke like ribbons of dawn. When clouds feel thick above your head and road dust coats each shoe, just close your eyes. Imagine skies where everything feels new. Her voice trembles at first, but steadies, brightens, warms. She sings of hidden talents aching to be noticed, of hands that can build more than batter, of hearts that still remember cradle songs even after years of brawls. The pub quiets, air thick with listening. Hooknose's jaw slackens. The axe-sharpening brute sets his whetstone down, eyes glimmering dangerously close to soft. A gargantuan fellow adorned with ceramic unicorn patches blinks rapidly, clutching his mug as though it might gallop away. The chorus swells. Rapunzel's braid sweeps like a golden pendulum. Flynn watches, transfixed. He has seen silver-tongued cons talk their way past guardhouses, but he has never seen a song disarm a room of ruffians. When Rapunzel reaches the final note, held long, then descending like a feather, the bar remains silent. Lanterns crackle. Somewhere in the back, a spoon clinks a plate. She lowers her hands, cheeks flushed. A petite thug with teardrop tattoos squeaks. Can I show her my puppets now? Hooknose elbows him, but softer than expected. Rapunzel smiles. Pure sunrise. I would love to see them, she says. That single permission cracks the dam. Dreams tumble out. The axe-sharpening giant, name Vladimir, confesses a secret passion for ceramic unicorns. He produces a palm-sized figurine from a satchel lined with velvet scraps. Hand-painted, he mutters, blush blooming beneath beard. A skinny bandit with more daggers than teeth plucks the abused lute and plays a hesitant waltz. Always wanted to headline the royal concert hall, he murmurs, eyes shining when Rapunzel sways to his tune. Hooknose removes his helmet, revealing a shock of carefully combed hair. I bake, he says gruffly. Hazelnut tarts. Haven't told the boys. Rapunzel's grin widens. They must be delicious. He coughs, pleased. Even the grizzled woman wiping the bar declares a hidden yen to choreograph ballet for battle axes. A pas de deux, but with blades, she clarifies. Rapunzel applauds the mental image. Within minutes, the snuggly duckling transforms. Benches become stages, tankards become drumbeats. The ruffian's growls soften into shy laughter. Flynn watches this metamorphosis, arms folded loosely, lips twitching upward. Rapunzel glides among the dreamers, encouraging, applauding, tugging hidden talents into daylight like roots coaxed from soil. She is no longer the outsider. She is the conductor of possibilities in a room that once vibrated only with menace. Flynn's chest feels oddly light. He reminds himself of ulterior motives. The crown, the satchel, the guards surely still searching. Yet each time Rapunzel claps for a thug's secret tap dance routine or gasps at another's delicate finger puppetry, something inside Flynn shifts, like a dial turning from survive to believe. Her song concludes with a reprise, entire pub joining the chorus. Voices ragged but earnest climb rafters, rattle shutters and, Flynn suspects, startle rabbits half a league away. When the final chord dissolves, the snuggly duckling erupts in cheers. Hooknose lifts Rapunzel off the barrel and sets her atop the bar like royalty. Drinks for the songbird, he bellows. She politely declines ale, requests water, earning respectful nods. Vladimir presses a tiny unicorn into her hand. For courage, he rumbles. She curtsies, tucking it into her purse. Flynn slips beside her, eyes soft. You realize you just renegotiated the entire hierarchy of criminal intimidation with a show tune. She giggles. They're not criminals tonight. They're... She searches for a word. Dreamers, waiting their turn. He studies her profile, eyes alight, brow smooth despite the danger swirling around their journey. She is like no one he's met, not naive, but relentlessly open as though she trusts the world to answer her wonder with miracles. And he, the practiced cynic, finds himself wanting to protect that light, not exploit it. The pub door slams open. 2 palace guards burst in, armor clanking. Murmurs ripple. Flynn's hand darts to Rapunzel's back, ready to hustle her through the kitchen, but Hooknose steps between them and the newcomers, blocking line of sight. You boys lost? The big ruffian growls. No royal parade here. The guards frown at the hodgepodge of innocent faces, lute player humming, baker wiping flour on apron. One leans toward Hooknose. We're pursuing a thief named Flynn Rider, last seen in these woods. Hooknose crosses arms wider than oak trunks. Can't help you? Around the room, thugs exaggerate shrugs. The puppeteer flips marionette strings. Vladimir whistles innocently. Ceramic unicorn balanced on one boulder-like palm. Flynn holds Rapunzel's gaze. Gratitude flickers between them, unspoken but bright. She squeezes his hand once, a pulse of shared danger and trust. After a tense beat, the guards retreat, armored boots crunching gravel until distance swallows their noise. The snuggly duckling exhales in ragged unison. Rapunzel hops from the bar. Thank you, she says to Hook-Nose, eyes shining. Hook-Nose adjusts his braid, abashed. Anyone chases you? They chase all of us. He grunts, then softens. Sides, someone needs to taste test my new peach cobbler. Come back soon, yeah? Promises, hugs, a smuggled loaf of hazelnut bread later, Rapunzel and Flynn slip out the back door into violet twilight. Fireflies spark above marsh reeds, echoing lantern dreams yet to come. They walk in silence at first. Rapunzel cradles the unicorn figurine. Flynn carries pastries in a napkin. Crickets weave a lullaby around their footsteps. Finally, Flynn clears his throat. Back there, you didn't just frighten them less, you made them more. He struggles for words. Thief's vocabulary ill-fitted for reverence. It was incredible. Rapunzel shrugs, cheeks pink. They were kind. They just needed permission to show it. He chuckles. I've spent my whole life looking for angles, ways to turn people's weaknesses into profit. Never considered turning them into, he gestures vaguely, songs. She smiles, tucking hair behind ear. Maybe songs are profit, just not the kind you can carry in a satchel. He stops, facing her under a canopy of indigo sky. Lantern light from the pub windows flickers behind, casting her in silhouette. You know, he says slowly, when I first agreed to guide you, it was because you had my satchel. He taps his chest. But right now, even if you tossed that crown into a river, I'd still take you. Emotions flicker across her face. Surprise, gratitude, something softer. The brook from earlier murmurs in the distance. She replies, voice hushed. Then we both found new dreams. For a heartbeat they stand, footpaths of possibility branching in every direction. Then Rapunzel laughs, light as wind chimes, and spins forward, braid swirling. Come on, lanterns await. She scampers ahead, fearless as dawn. Flynn lingers, watching. Mission, leverage, bounty, all fade like soot in rain. Before him darts a wonder, barefoot and brave, turning thugs into troubadours and lead-lined hearts into music. He hefts the napkin of pastries, grinning. Hey songbird, save me a lantern seat, he calls, jogging to catch up. Behind them, the snuggly ducklings' windows glow warm in the deepening night, a beacon for ruffians whose dreams finally have a chorus. And up ahead, unseen but certain, 1,000 lanterns wait to meet the girl who proves every longing, no matter how rough-edged, deserves its turn to shine. Cobblestone streets greet Rapunzel and Flynn like a river of textured moonlight, each stone still warm from day-long sun. The kingdom seems to hum with anticipation. Streamers flutter on wrought iron balconies. Musicians tune lutes beneath lamplight. Bakers stack honey-glazed fritters in pyramids that glisten like small suns. Everywhere there is color. Banners dyed sunset crimson, ribbons looping between lampposts, skirts swirling in poppy reds and cornflower blues. Even the air feels festive, laced with cinnamon and the distant brass of jubilant horns. Flynn steers Rapunzel through the throng, disguising her wonder beneath the brim of a borrowed straw hat. She tries not to gape, fails, but the crowd is too swept up in celebration to notice. Children dart past clutching paper lanterns painted with gold leaf. Vendors shout the virtues of sugar-coated almonds. Acrobats tumble across flagstone, scattering petals like confetti. Rapunzel's heart races, every breath collecting new sensations. Horseshoe clatter, pipe organ trills, river water scent rising through sewer grates to mingle with roasted chestnuts. They pause at a public square flanked by whitewashed walls. Murals stretch across the plaster like living storybooks. Scenes of a baby with radiant curls, parents holding her aloft as courtiers cheer. Rapunzel steps closer. The toddler's eyes are wide, the hair unmistakably gold. A pang circles her chest. Beneath the painting reads, "Our lost princess, return to us." Flynn notices her hush, follows her gaze. He reaches a hand but hesitates, letting silence speak. Rapunzel lifts trembling fingers, almost touching the painted face before pulling back, unsure why tears prick her lashes. She has never been here, yet nostalgia rolls through her like surf against shore. The square's clock tower tolls 6 chimes, snapping the moment. Revelers cheer and turn toward the riverside promenade where fleets of lantern-laden gondolas await. Flynn clears his throat. Boat launches this way. She nods, tucking questions beside her heartbeat. They join the procession that winds toward the water, crossing a bridge whose arch lights with crystal orbs as they step. Below, the lake spreads smooth as obsidian ink, reflecting torchlight so perfectly it seems a second city glows beneath. Rowers in navy vests, steady carved cedar boats rocking at stone steps. Overhead, dusk deepens into cobalt. The first star trembles awake. Flynn palms a coin to a dockhand and helps Rapunzel into a gondola trimmed with white jasmine. Seats are velvet, worn but clean. The rower, an elderly man with salt and pepper beard, pushes off, oar slicing water in slow, sure strokes. Rapunzel's braid coils like a golden serpent at her feet. Starlight freckles the surface around them. As they glide from shore, lanterns ignite one by one along the promenade, wax candles nestling into silk cages of rose, amber, and tangerine. Gasps ripple across boats. A hush spreads, reverent as cathedral air. At a trumpet flourish, the first lantern rises, wobbling until breeze steadies its ascent. Then another, and another. Hundreds lifting like pollinated dreams, drifting upward in lazy spirals. The lake mirrors each flame, so the world appears doubled. A sky of wishes above, a sky of reflections below, and in between, a girl who has waited a lifetime for this very light. Rapunzel cannot speak. Her hands cover her mouth, laughter mixing with tears. Gondolas float in gentle orbits. Rowers rest oars so as not to disturb silence thick with awe. Gold glimmers across pupils and ripples down cheeks like molten hope. Flynn watches her more than the lanterns. Warm candle glow paints her face in soft oranges. Reflections dance in her green eyes, turning them liquid and wide. The mission, the crown, the satchel, each drifts from his mind like spent sparks. Here she is no stranger in ragged dress. She is sunrise made human, singing without words. Finally, Rapunzel exhales. The breath escapes as melody, a hush tune she once practiced against tower stone. Only now it emerges full and luminous, filling the gondola and rippling across water. All those days, watching from the windows, all those years outside looking in, all that time, never even knowing just how blind I've been. Her voice trembles, steadying on the glide of the melody. Nearby boats hush further, eyes turn, charmed. The rower smiles, resting elbows on knees, letting the song row for him. Rapunzel's words float upward with the lanterns, weaving into golden skeins. And at last I see the light. And it's like the fog has lifted. And at last I see the light. And it's like the sky is new. Flynn joins, low harmony barely above breeze. And the world has somehow shifted all at once. Everything looks different, now that I see you. Their voices melt together, 2 streams feeding the same radiant river. Lanterns ascend like applause written in flame. When the final note dissolves into night, silence holds a heartbeat. Then soft cheers glide from neighboring gondolas, gentle claps so as not to break the spell. Fireworks bloom at the lake's edge, silent bursts of lavender sparks raining glitter that vanish before touching water. Rapunzel turns to Flynn, cheeks flushed, eyes shimmering. For a suspended instant, the world narrows to the space between them. Jasmine scent, breath mingled with candle wax and lake mist, hearts thudding rhythms meant to intersect. He lifts a tentative hand, brushing a loose strand of her hair behind her ear. She inhales, lashes lowering. They lean closer, timid, then certain, until their foreheads nearly touch. Lantern glow halos them. Reflections ripple golden across parted lips. The universe holds its breath. "Hey, there he is!" A shout shatters the hush. Lanterns jostle overhead. On the promenade, torches clatter as palace guards charge toward the docks, breastplates flashing perilous fire. Flynn stiffens, jaw clenching. Rapunzel blinks, dream fracturing into shards. Guards point. "Thief! Seize him!" Oars splash. Rowers scramble. Flynn grabs Rapunzel's hand, pulling her flat as an arrow as another gondola bowls past, oar nearly clipping her braid. "Hold on," he mutters, scanning routes. Rowers stir, chaos rippling across water. Guards push off in pursuit boats, metal clanking against cedar. The elderly oarsman sees panic in Rapunzel's eyes. "Slide under the benches," he whispers. They duck beneath velvet seats, knees knocking wood. The old man resumes rowing, posture calm as twilight. Overhead, lanterns continue their patient climb, ignorant of alarms below. Pursuit boats slice past, officers glaring at every passenger. Flynn squeezes Rapunzel's hand, steady, silent. She trembles, adrenaline whipping through veins once filled solely with wonder. Yet amid fear, gratitude roots. She has seen the lights. Even if the night ends in capture, that vision is hers forever. Minutes stretch thin. Eventually, guards drift farther, chasing phantom splashes. The rower slows, casting a sidelong glance. Coast is clear, for now. Flynn exhales. They emerge, breathless. Rapunzel's eyes sweep the sky. Lanterns still rise, quieter now, some dimming as candles wane. A final chorus of hopes ascending toward dawn. Tears touch her cheeks, not of fear, but of bittersweet fullness. She touches her heart. "I never knew I could feel this much," she whispers. Flynn studies her profile, lantern light gilding tears, framing courage. Something irrevocable settles in his heartbeat. She is not leverage, she is lighthouse. He swallows. "There's more world waiting," he says. "If we keep moving." She nods, wiping tears, breath steadying. The rower angles toward a darkened inlet lined with willow curtains. Oarlocks creak. Water hushes against hull. On shore, reeds sway like curious audiences. Fireflies take over where lanterns fade, peppering shadows with pale sparks. Flynn helps Rapunzel disembark. Her bare feet sink into mud, cool and grounding. She turns once more to the lake, lanterns now distant gold freckles against indigo. She clasps hands and silently thanks every soul who let their wish fly tonight, unaware it guided one wish come true below. Flynn tugs lightly. "We should find shelter before the guards regroup." She nods, then surprises him by linking her arm through his. Months, no, hours ago he would have twisted away from such trust. Now he lets it anchor him, guiding steps up a moon-silvered path toward unknown safety. Behind them, the old rower lifts a lantern from a niche beneath his seat, lights it with a flint spark, and watches it rise. His whispered wish drifts skyward. May the lost princess find home. He smiles, rows back toward the docks, and vanishes into festival noise. Up the hillside, Rapunzel and Flynn pause at an overlook. The kingdom glows, a tapestry of torchlight, rooftop chimneys, banner ribbons flicking in midnight breeze. Rapunzel touches the small ceramic unicorn tucked in her pouch, a memento from the snuggly duckling. She thinks of ruffians who dared to dream, of villagers releasing lanterns for a princess whom legend says will return, of a thief who stands beside her breathing like a man who has glimpsed sunrise. Wind shifts, carrying faint strains of celebration music. Rapunzel hums a phrase of her earlier song, softer now, private. Flynn joins, harmony just audible. Their voices rise together, not for a crowd, but for the quiet between them. The night accepts the tune, folding it into cricket chirps and distant revelry. Far below, last lanterns wink out as candles die, but their reflections remain in memory, gold after images painted onto hearts. Rapunzel closes her eyes. She sees again the murals she painted of lanterns long before she ever knew their shape, realizes her imagination had been reaching toward truth all along. Maybe dreams, once strong enough, find passage into real skies. Flynn touches her shoulder. Ready? Yes, she answers, voice wrapped in certainty. Whatever comes next, I'm ready. They turn from the glowing city, stepping into shadows of an alley that smells of rye bread and possibility. A cat slinks past, tail high. Somewhere in the kingdom, bells begin the slow count toward midnight. Each toll feels like a stepping stone across a river of before and after. Lantern night ends, but its light lingers in two sets of eyes that have learned to trade fear for wonder, caution for hope. And in that radiance, the road ahead, though dark, uncertain, and chased by guards, looks not like danger, but like dawn. Morning creeps into the abandoned mill where Flynn and Rapunzel found refuge after lantern night, its beams slipping through warped shutters in lances of gold. Rapunzel wakes first. Straw rustles under her as she sits up, braid heavy with the scent of lake mist and jasmine. The world beyond the warped door feels new, an open book whose pages flutter in a breeze she can finally read. Flynn snores softly beside a broken loom. His jacket, slung over her shoulders during the chilly walk from the docks, now serves as her pillow. She smiles, then freezes. A glint of metal peeks from beneath a pile of burlap near the wall. Carefully, she tugs the cloth aside and reveals Flynn's satchel. The clasp is loose. Curiosity yawns wider than caution. Fingers trembling, she lifts the flap. Inside lies the small but unmistakably regal crown, its 7 pearl-tipped points shining with candlelit memories from the tower mural. Beneath it, the wanted poster bearing Flynn's face. Her gaze lingers on the crown. Light catches filigree scrolling around the band. Sunbursts, curling like stylized rays. She has traced those very rays on her wall 1,000 times without knowing why. Heart pounding, she sets the crown aside and pulls out Flynn's rolled map, but a slip of purple silk escapes beneath it, embroidered with a golden sun symbol. Rapunzel swallows. That sunburst, petals of light encircling a central dot, matches the pattern she painted on nearly every mural, in lantern clusters, on palace rooftops, even hidden in the swirl of waves. It's the emblem she doodled absent-mindedly on journal margins, the one her brush returned to again and again, as natural as breathing. And now it flutters in her lap, woven into royal fabric. A slow tide of realization rises. She thinks of the murals in the city square, a baby with glowing hair, lost to the kingdom. Her birthday, the same day as lantern night. The guards guarding her braid but never her heart. A memory flickers. Gothel's lullaby, flower gleam and glow. Was that lullaby for her hair? Or for the kingdom's stolen gift? Rapunzel stands, breath rough. She carries the crown toward a dusty mirror propped against the wall. Its silver backing has tarnished, but the reflection is clear enough to see her own face framed by sunlight bands slipping through planks. She lifts the crown. It feels heavier than imagined, yet oddly right, as though her palms were molded for its curve. Slowly, she sets it upon her head. The mirror pulls a soft gasp from her lips. Gold upon gold, eyes wide in dawning truth. For the first time, she sees herself not as the tower girl, but as the center of every story the kingdom spins each year into the sky. She is the sun child, the lantern's muse, the lost princess. A floorboard creaks. She turns. Flynn stands in the half-light, eyes flicking from the crown to her face. He opens his mouth to speak, but a third presence interrupts. The mill door slams inward. Mother Gothel sweeps in, cloak black as an eclipse, eyes blazing with fear disguised beneath fury. "Flower!" Her voice cracks like a whip. "What have you done?" Rapunzel instinctively lifts the crown from her head, clutching it to her chest. "Mother," she begins, but the word tastes false now. Gothel's gaze snaps to Flynn, then to the satchel, piecing together betrayal. "You stole my flower!" Gothel hisses at Flynn. She strides forward, but Rapunzel steps between them, first time ever blocking her mother's path. Gothel's expression flickers from rage to manipulation. "Rapunzel, darling, you're confused. That man is dangerous. He only wants your power." She extends a hand, voice syrup sweet. "Come with mother. We'll go home." Rapunzel's fingers tighten around the crown's rim. "This is my home," she says, voice soft but steeled. She holds up the royal sun emblem. This is me. I'm the lost princess, aren't I?" Gothel's smile wavers. "Nonsense, my flower, stories to scare children." "Then why did you steal me?" Rapunzel's words slice through the mill dust. "Why did you keep me hidden? Why does my hair keep you young?" She lifts her braid, the end trailing straw. Light seems to pulse through each strand, fueled by truth. Gothel drops pretense, voice low as a storm gutter. "You think the world is kind? They will lock you in a tower of their own to harvest your magic." "They already did," Rapunzel whispers. "You did." For the first time, Flynn sees Gothel truly dangerous. She advances, eyes glittering like knives. "Give me the crown, Rapunzel, and we'll forget this silliness." Rapunzel steps back, crown pressed to heart. "No." The word vibrates with all the dawns she watched alone, with every dream of lanterns, with each paint-stroking wish. It is small, but it ripples outward, cracking chains of obedience laid stone by stone since infancy. Gothel lunges. Flynn intercepts, but Gothel is agile, dagger flashing from sleeve. A scuffle flares. Flynn blocks, stumbles, grabs a broken spindle, parries. Rapunzel, mind racing, spots the iron frying pan leaning by the loom. She snatches it, familiar heft returning confidence. When Gothel angles to strike Flynn, Rapunzel steps forward and swings. Clang, metal meets blade, sparks fly. Gothel staggers back, eyes wide at Rapunzel's stance, feet planted, pan raised like a shield. "I won't go with you," Rapunzel declares. "My place is with my family." Her voice cracks on the word family, but resolve steals it. Gothel straightens, breathing hard. "I am your family." Rapunzel shakes her head. A mother wouldn't hide her child from love. Silence thickens, broken by crow caws outside. Gothel's shoulders sag. For a fleeting second, sorrow surfaces, wrinkles returning, hair losing sheen, but fear quickly armors her again. She tosses a smoke vial onto the floor. Plumes bloom, blinding. Rapunzel coughs. When haze clears, Gothel is gone. Door banging in wind, cloak whipping down the hill. Flynn stumbles to Rapunzel's side, hand bleeding where blade grazed. Rapunzel presses cloth to it, voice trembling. "She'll try again." "Then we warn the kingdom," Flynn says, squeezing her hand. He looks at the crown, then her. "Princess." The word floods her with nerves and courage alike. "I have to go to them." Flynn nods, wiping blood on his sleeve. "Let's get you home." They leave the mill into noon sunlight. A breeze lifts Rapunzel's braid like a banner. Crown tucked safe in satchel, she and Flynn descend the path towards city gates. For every step they take, Rapunzel feels years of captive silence fall away, stone by crumbling stone. Late afternoon finds the kingdom square alive with lantern cleanup. Rapunzel approaches the captain of the guard, voice trembling but clear. "I have proof of who I am, and of who took me." She unveils the crown and the sun symbol cloth. Gasps ripple. Guards escort her through marble corridors to the royal audience hall. Flynn trails, uneasy among polished armor, but Rapunzel clasps his hand. "Stay," she whispers. "I want you near." The hall doors open, high ceilings vaulting into stained glass suns, marble reflecting gold. At room's center stand the king and queen, older than the mural but instantly recognizable. Eyes bright with expectation they hardly dare voice. Rapunzel steps forward, braids sweeping marble, crown cradled like a fragile dawn. She kneels, presses the crown into her parents' hands. "I think," her voice shakes, "I think this belongs with my family." Tears glisten. The queen raises trembling fingers to Rapunzel's cheek, tracing the curve that mirrors her own. The king's hand covers Rapunzel's, warm and unyielding. Recognition blooms, like lanterns finding sky. The queen pulls Rapunzel into an embrace that feels like home rediscovered, heartbeats sinking through years of missing lullabies. Flynn watches, chest tight with something more potent than relief. He, the thief, stands witness as a kingdom's greatest treasure returns of her own will. Guards lower spears, courtiers weep. But Rapunzel's joy is tempered by urgency. Mother Gothel is still out there. She tells the king, she will come for the magic again. The king nods gravely, motioning generals to action. Riders are dispatched with warnings. Watchtowers light midday beacons usually reserved for war. Evening paints castle walls amber when Rapunzel stands before a full-length mirror in a guest chamber. Her hair drapes like molten sunrise down embroidered gown the color of dawn. Maids bustle, but she scarcely notices. She studies the reflection. Crown now resting gently on golden braids. A princess, yes, but also a painter, a singer, a girl who turned thugs into dreamers. The mirror reflects years lost, yet also years waiting. A knock. Flynn enters, fresh linens wrapped around his wound. They share a smile that needs no words. But Rapunzel's laughter dims when thunder rumbles beyond balcony. She knows Gothel. Shadow moves best at nightfall. Guards patrol corridors. Lanterns burn bright. Still, Gothel is cunning. She may slip in disguised as nurse or bribe a sentry. Rapunzel clasps Flynn's hand. "Stay with me tonight, in case she comes." Flynn nods. "Thought you'd never ask." They move to balcony doors. Out in the square, children twirl leftover ribbons. Bakers box pastries for supper. Distant bells toll in hazy serenity. Rapunzel grips the railing, the sun symbol etched into bronze beneath her palms. She remembers singing among lanterns, the almost kiss interrupted by danger. Tomorrow, perhaps, the sky will be safe enough for hearts to finish what they began. Behind them, the mirror catches their reflection. A princess reborn, a rogue redeemed. Truth has found its shape, and it looks like sunrise after endless night. Yet beyond castle walls, a cloaked figure lingers at the edge of torchlight. Eyes narrowed, heart ticking with desperate calculation. Shadow recedes, but only for now. For Rapunzel, fear no longer fastens chains, it sharpens resolve. She has named her captor, claimed her legacy, stepped from canvas into life. Tonight, she will rest beneath rooftops that once released lanterns in her honor. Lanterns she answered by returning. Tomorrow, she will face whatever storms Gothel summons, armed not only with magic locks, but with newfound voice. In the mirror, Rapunzel meets her own gaze, steady and bright. She lifts her chin. The truth in the glass reflects not a fragile flower, but a sunburst, rising, relentless, ready. A prison reforged, the tower stands unchanged. A lone candle of stone against morning haze, yet its aura feels different, as though hope once tasted now ferments into dread. Rapunzel wakes on her old straw mattress, wrists bound by silk knots, goat milky light pooling across murals that suddenly look like cages. Gothel waits at the window, hairpins glinting like daggers. "Home again, my flower," she purrs. Rapunzel's stomach twists. The word home tastes like ash now. "You can't keep me here," Rapunzel whispers, voice raw. I have always kept you, Gothel replies. She brushes Rapunzel's cheek with mock gentleness. Your little castle phase is over. Everything will return to normal. Rapunzel's gaze snaps to the corner where a set of iron manacles lies coiled like sleeping serpents, proof of just how normal Gothel intends things to be. She swallows fear, lets anger rise. I am the kingdom's princess, she says, words ringing against stone. You stole me. Gothel's smile curls. Princess, thief, barmaid. Labels are fickle. Safety is simple. She lifts Rapunzel's braid, caressing shimmering strands. And your magic keeps us both safe. Rapunzel jerks away. Rage ignites. You were never my mother. The sentence rings like a break in glass, beautiful and irreparable. Gothel's eyes widen, then harden into onyx. She backhands Rapunzel across the cheek. The slap stings less than the decades of control it shatters. You ungrateful, Gothel hisses, but hoofbeats outside interrupt. She peers down. Flynn Rider, pale and bleeding, staggers from Maximus's saddle and pounds on the tower wall. Rapunzel! Gothel's face contorts with furious disbelief. The thief survived. She whirls, securing a hidden dagger at her belt, then yanks the bell cord. Rapunzel, let down your hair, she commands, voice sugar-poisoned. Rapunzel stands but does not obey. Below, Flynn spots the braid snaking from the window's edge, yet hangs limply, unreleased. He calls again. Gothel seizes Rapunzel's arms, thrusting her toward the sill. He'll die if you don't, she warns. Rapunzel flinches as the dagger grazes her ribs. Desperation glitters in Gothel's gaze, youth draining, fear rising. Rapunzel's eyes meet Flynn's. There is apology, love, and unspoken strategy. She lowers the braid at last. Gothel grips it and descends like a furious spider. Rapunzel ties a second loop around a bedpost, heart hammering. Second stretch, then a grunt, a clang of metal, a cry. She pulls up. Only her braid returns, severed cleanly at shoulder height. Crimson ribbon snapped. The final confrontation. Flynn bursts through the tower door moments later, shoulder bleeding from a fresh stab but alive. Gothel, enraged, wields the dagger. Out of my way, boy. He staggers yet plants himself between the women. Rapunzel rushes, tearing silk knots free, pressing cloth to his wound. Gothel lunges. Rapunzel blocks with a frying pan, clambering over paintings of suns and lanterns now slashed by conflict. Rapunzel, heal me, Gothel demands, voice cracking. Sing for me. No, Rapunzel says, steel in her whisper. She faces Gothel fully. You called me flower, but flowers grow toward light, and you hid me in darkness. Gothel advances, blade raised. Flynn pushes up, swaying. Rapunzel seizes his wrist. Trust me, she murmurs. Her hands glow, instinct begging magic to flow. But she turns, offering Gothel a bargain. Let him go, and I'll heal you one last time. I'll stay willingly. Flynn's eyes widen. No! But Gothel hesitates. Calculation wars with mania. Finally she nods, twisting a rope around Flynn's wrists, shoving him toward the window. One wrong step, he'll tumble. Rapunzel approaches, humming the lullaby. Hair stump still glows faintly. Gothel releases a shuddering breath of greed. Eyes close. This is Rapunzel's moment. She signals Flynn with a tiny shake of her head, then grips a shard of broken mirror, hidden in her palm. Flynn acts first. With sudden vigor, he slices his bound wrists free on the mirror edge. Gothel's eyes snap open. Too late. He lunges, grasping a jagged piece of the severed braid. For you, he whispers, and hacks through the glowing locks at the roots just above Rapunzel's shoulders. Gold drains to brown, like molten metal turning to ash. Light vanishes. Gothel staggers back, horror stretching her features as vitality evacuates, skin withering. No, my flower, my beauty. She reaches for Rapunzel, Cracks spider across once youthful cheeks. Bones thin, eyes sink. In a final, desperate pirouette, she snatches a shredded curtain, but fabric rips. She trips backward through the broken window where the braid once hung. A scream spirals downward, swallowed by ivy. When it ends, only wind answers. Silence blooms, vast, echoing. The tower no longer feels imprisoning. It feels hollow, as though the evil that filled its stones exited with Gothel's fall. Dust motes drift in lazy swirls, catching dawn. Freedom at a price. Rapunzel drops beside Flynn as adrenaline collapses into panic. His wound bleeds heavily. The braid, now lifeless, slumps across floorboards. She presses hands to his chest, but without magic, her palms remain ordinary, trembling. "Stay," she pleads. Tears blur her vision. "Please stay." Flynn manages a smile, shaky but real. "I've seen the light," he murmurs, echo of last night's duet. "Worth every bruise." Blood beads at his lip. Rapunzel's sob breaks. She strokes his hair, simple brown strands like her own now, kisses his brow. One tear, hot and luminous with all the world's heartbreak, slips from her lash and lands upon his cheek. Light flares, soft, golden, different than before, flowing from tear to wound. Skin knits, breath steadies. Flynn's eyes open, clear. Rapunzel gasps, half laugh, half sob. Her magic, she realizes, was never just hair. It was heart, and heart cannot be shorn. Flynn sits slowly, touches healed skin in awe. Rapunzel wraps arms around him, shoulders shaking with relief. Together they stand in the tower doorway, morning breeze rustling short brown locks. Below, ivy covers a crumpled black cloak, dust already claiming what vanity once preserved. Freedom tastes of pine resin and distant city bells. Rapunzel looks at murals, her murals. Sun symbols shining, lanterns floating. None fade with her hair's glow. They remain, proof that light originates within. She turns to Flynn. "Let's go home." No chain, no braid, no lie holds her now. They descend the spiral stair, not by hair, but by steps. Feet echoing, each a drumbeat of liberation. At forest's base, Maximus awaits, snorting approval. Rapunzel pauses, gaze lifting to tower crown. She bows her head once, not in reverence, but in farewell, then mounts behind Flynn. Together they ride toward a kingdom that waits with arms outstretched, toward parents whose lanterns will soon blaze not with longing, but with welcome. The first glimpse. Mid-morning, the coach crests a knoll. There, half veiled by pines, stands the tower. Distance lends it dignity instead of dread. Stones once gray now flush pink beneath sunrise. Ivy cascades like green waterfalls. Somewhere high up, a single empty window blinks back at Rapunzel like an old friend surprised by company. The coach halts. Rapunzel steps onto dew-damp grass, breathing resin and loam. She carries the 3 sacks while Flynn shoulders a spade. Maximus, released from reins, trots off to graze, tail swishing approval at this odd errand. They follow a narrow path ghosted in her memory, where thorn bushes once sliced at her curiosity, blossoms now crowd, seeded by winds that found freedom sooner than she did. At the tower's base, Rapunzel kneels and draws a circle with her fingertip. 1 arm's length from the wall, all the way around. Flynn sinks the spade. Earth yields, dark and pliant. Handful by handful, she scatters sunflower seeds into the furrow. She covers them tenderly, palms smoothing soil as if tucking children into bed. "Grow tall," she whispers, "grow bright, higher than these stones ever dreamed." Flynn overhears and smiles. The order sounds half blessing, half challenge. Ascent without shackles. The tower door stands ajar, hinges long freed by palace carpenters who reclaimed the ironwork for city bridges. Inside, faint dust shivers on sunbeams. Rapunzel climbs the spiral stairs, not by rope, not by command, but by choice. Fingers brushing the wall's cool skin. She counts the painted sun still clinging to stone and can't help grinning. Even time couldn't scrub them away. At the top chamber she pauses. The straw mattress has been removed, and floorboards gleam beneath a fresh scrub of lye. Yet her murals, lantern constellations, swan wing galaxies, remain intact. They feel like postcards from a younger self. Wish you were here, until I wished myself elsewhere. She props a canvas in the window alcove, unrolls brushes, pops open tubes of palace milled pigment. Flynn lingers by the stairwell, content to let silence spin its gold. Painting the sky for the sky, Rapunzel begins with cobalt, stroking long sweeps of dawn across linen. She adds threads of rose, slivers of tangerine, colors that once filtered through bars of stone but never fully entered the tower. Now they spill unchecked, each stroke an equal measure of memory and reclamation. Outside, a sparrow flits onto the sill, tilting its head at the frenzy of color. Rapunzel laughs. "No more cages," she assures, offering her palm. The bird hops onto her fingers, feathers vibrating with heartbeat. She carries it to the open hatch in the roof, the one she once used to sweep leaves under a blanket of secrecy. Today, she swings it wide. Sky rushes in like blue tide. The sparrow launches, winging upward, and soon 3 more join, liberated from the eaves where they nested in old fear. She watches them arrow into sunlight, then returns to the canvas. A new idea sparks. She daubs golden petals along the bottom, sunflowers yet to bloom. Some tilt toward a painted tower, others toward the rising sun. She signs the corner with a swirl of sienna that resembles the clipped coil of her former braid, then leans back. The painting is not a goodbye, nor a reclamation. It is a footnote that says both can exist. Flynn's quiet offering. Flynn appears with 2 clay mugs steamed from a camp kettle. Mint for her, coffee for him. He sets hers on the ledge. "How's the view?" Rapunzel nudges him closer to the canvas. He whistles low. "Looks like forgiveness." She snorts softly. "I wasn't aiming for that. Maybe forgiveness aimed for you." They sip in companionable hush. Wind musses Rapunzel's short hair. Flynn tucks a strand behind her ear. The gesture carries no urgency. Their story already knows its gravity. It doesn't need constant proving. Rewriting the room. After finishing the painting, Rapunzel rummages through a satchel and withdraws seed packets of ivy geranium, morning glory, lavender. She scatters them across window boxes, once empty save for dust. "Let the tower grow something back," she tells Flynn. They descend together. At ground level, Rapunzel hammers a small wooden plaque into the soil, crafted by palace carpenters, lettered by her own hand. This tower stood for fear and now stands for growth. By midday, sunlight crowns the tower like a circlet. The freshly planted soil looks no different yet. Rapunzel swears she sees green edges pressing upward. Flynn teases that royalty can be impatient. She elbows him, laughing. They picnic on bread, goat cheese, and orchard apples beneath the tower's shade. Birds, the same species that once ferried her messages, flutter onto nearby branches as though to check on the girl who wrote back. She tosses crumbs, delighted. Memory, not prison. When plates are empty and afternoon heralds their return ride, Rapunzel stands, wiping hands on her dress. She circles the tower slowly, fingertips skimming rough stone. Instead of chills, warmth pulses from each contact point, a sensation like hugging an old friend who wronged her long ago and has since repented through silence. She stops beneath the window where hair once cascaded. Looking up, she no longer feels dizzy at the height or hollow in the chest. Instead, she sees potential, Vines will climb, sunflowers will rise, birds will nest without intercepting rescue pleas. One day, traveling painters might use the tower as easel, children as hide-and-seek fortress, lovers as midnight star perch. She lifts her face to the window and says a quiet farewell to the girl who used to watch clouds from behind it. Thank you for surviving, she thinks, so I could arrive. The ride back. Maximus snorts impatience. They mount, and Rapunzel turns one last time. Light glints off the plaque. A breeze ruffles soil. She imagines the tower nodding. Finally part of the living landscape, not a relic of isolation. The rider's path curves through wildflower meadows glowing in late day. Rapunzel hums a tune about open doors and fearless mornings. Flynn joins on the chorus, off-key and wholehearted. Hours later, the palace's sun-crescent spires greet them. Servants rush to stable the horse, but Rapunzel pauses at the gate, suddenly aware that she carries no shadows on her back, only the memory of stones transformed into stepping stones. The past hasn't loosened, it has retuned itself, like harp strings aligned to a new key. Inside the castle, lanterns already warm corridors for evening. Rapunzel breathes in the mingled scents of wax and parchment, time and paint. She is both princess of these halls and caretaker of a tower now brimming with seeds, and in her mind a dove-soft certainty. When the sunflowers bloom, she will return again, not to reclaim or mourn, but simply to witness how light expands where once it was kept in chains. She walks forward, steps settling into the rhythm of belonging. Above the capital, twilight paints the sky with colors she knows by heart. Colors she was never meant to keep to herself. Tonight, she will mix those pigments again and brush them across palace doors so that every soul who passes finds freedom waiting inside the brightness. The tower will remember her, and she will remember the tower. Neither hostage nor captor now, but two landmarks on the same horizon, each pointing to the simple truth that journeys sometimes begin in locked rooms and end under open sky. Sunlight pours through the palace's south arcade like liquid honey, warming the slate floor where 20 village children sit cross-legged, waiting for Rapunzel. She arrives not in jeweled slippers but barefoot, a paint-speckled apron knotted over a simple linen dress. Her brown hair, now shoulder-length and wavy, bounces as she claps for attention. Today, she says, spreading a bolt of canvas across the stones, we'll paint the wind. Puzzled brows rise. Rapunzel opens jars of pigment, sky blue, wheat gold, river silver, and shows them how to swirl color into invisible currents that twist and leap across the fabric. Soon, little hands smear turquoise arcs and daffodil spirals, the courtyard echoing with giggles and gull cries drawn from memory. Rapunzel kneels beside each child, guiding fingers, praising brave strokes. When brushes falter, she encourages them to chase the breeze instead of copy it. By noon, the canvas looks alive, wind visible at last. Word spreads, and these sun classes become weekly affairs. Farmers' daughters arrive clutching charcoal stubs. Blacksmiths' sons bring hammer-rough palms eager for delicate work. The king commissions new easels. The queen supplies biscuits and berry cordial. Paint drips onto marble that once trembled beneath royal boots. Now it blooms with color, teaching everyone who sees it that rules can bend without breaking. As summer slips into early autumn, Rapunzel revives another ritual. Each lantern night, no longer a vigil for a lost child but a celebration of found hope, she gathers townsfolk in the courtyard after sunset. Torches line the balustrades, musicians strum gentle chords. Rapunzel settles onto a velvet cushion and opens a leather-bound storybook, stitched by palace scribes. Children lean forward, adults hush. She begins, "There once was a tower that thought it was a cage." All eyes widen. She weaves tales drawn from her own years of confinement, part cautionary, part triumph, always luminous. She changes the endings too. Some nights the tower learns to walk on stone legs and explore the kingdom. Other nights it transforms into a lighthouse guiding ships home. With each telling, Rapunzel plants seeds of resilience, teaching listeners that hardship can harden into walls or blossom into horizons. At the height of every story, palace lanterns are lit, hundreds of them, then extinguished all at once. Darkness hushes the crowd. Rapunzel whispers, "Now imagine your own ending." Candles flare again, and people release their lanterns skyward, each carrying a secret chapter no one else can write. Over time, these storytelling circles grow. Traveling merchants arrive early just to hear the newest allegory. Scholars jot down metaphors. Troubadours turn episodes into songs carried to distant provinces. Flynn, or Eugene, when court formality demands, finds his calling in motion. He keeps a stack of blank journals on his nightstand and a quill tucked behind his ear. Whenever he and Rapunzel embark on journeys, to coastal hamlets trading salt for silk, to mountain monasteries harvesting rare herbs, Flynn records everything. The taste of mint tea at a cliffside inn, the legend of a blue fox that guides miners by moonlight, the way Rapunzel's laughter echoes inside a crystal cave. Rapunzel illustrates each entry in bright inks: a sea dragon curled beneath a fishing pier, a silk merchant's hands unraveling crimson bolts, tiny suns hidden in sheepherders' woven belts. They bind these pages into travelogues sold at palace fairs. Proceeds fund orphan scholarships and village art clubs. Over time, these sun-quill journals populate every hearth shelf from capital to frontier, turning the kingdom's map into a living picture book. Their roaming is rhythmic rather than restless. Rapunzel insists on stopping at village schools where children have never held a paintbrush. Flynn sneaks pastries into his satchel for long rides, certain her sweet tooth still outshines royal etiquette. They debate which sunset was most magnificent. She says the lavender haze above wheat fields. He argues for the ruby glimmer on mountain snow. At campfires, they swap stories collected on the road with tales plucked from their endless imagination. Sometimes, on quiet stretches between towns, Rapunzel's eyes wander beyond wagon ruts to distant tree lines, and Flynn senses her thoughts drifting towerward. He never interrupts. When they break for lunch, she may climb a hill alone, whisper a thank you to the breeze, then rejoin him with a smile. He understands. Forgetting is not freedom. Remembering without pain is. Back at the palace, corridors no longer echo solely with courtly matters. A former ruffian, Hook-Nose, now Master Boulanger, operates the royal bakery, teaching pages how to roll dough into swan shapes. Vladimir curates a traveling unicorn figurine exhibition that tours border villages, each sculpture paired with a poem written by local children. The captain of the guard hosts weekly fencing lessons where rapier thrusts pause mid-air so students can sketch the shape their sword made. Art of motion, the captain calls it, crediting Rapunzel. The royal advisors notice other blooms. Trade routes once choked by suspicion ease when merchant caravans swap songbooks at twilight. Disputes over irrigation canals settle after both towns collaborate on a shared mural depicting water's journey. Rapunzel's kindness and curiosity ripple outward, and the kingdom's pulse sinks to that gentler rhythm. One crisp evening, Rapunzel and Flynn return from a 3-week circuit of the northern provinces. As they dismount in the palace courtyard, she catches sight of a new rookery installed atop the western tower, an invitation for migrating birds. She laughs, delighted. The head gardener explains that while repairing palace roofs, workers found an abandoned sparrow nest. Remembering Rapunzel's fondness for feathered visitors, they built a sanctuary. She thanks him with a hug that leaves the stoic gardener blushing crimson. Later, in her studio, Rapunzel unwraps a small parcel acquired on their travels, a sun-shaped locket carved from cedar, soft, fragrant, humble. She sets it on the windowsill beside a pebble from the tower's base and a pressed sunflower petal from the first bloom. Each object anchors her journey: confinement, courage, continuation. She opens her journal and sketches a new page, an infinite staircase spiraling upward, each step inscribed with a date and a tiny illustration. Today, I taught a cobbler's son to dream in violet. Today, a baker tried painting and discovered stars taste like cinnamon. At lantern night, exactly 2 years after her return, Rapunzel stands on the same barge where she once asked if the lights were for her. This time, she turns to the gathered crowd, merchants, guards, children, scholars, and says, "These lights are for us, and tomorrow we'll need new dreams for them to carry." She releases the lantern. It rises, mingling with thousands more. Flynn sidles beside her, journal tucked under his arm. "Where to next?" he asks. She links her fingers with his. "Somewhere we haven't imagined yet." He grins. "That narrows it down to everything." They laugh, and the sound weds itself to the hush of the lake, to the glow of floating wishes, to the memory of a girl singing at a window. As the lanterns climb, Rapunzel casts one glance beyond the city walls. Far away, sunflowers circle a lonely tower, their faces turned toward a horizon that never ends. She smiles, gratitude swelling like dawn. The tower may have caged her body, but it forged her spirit, taught her that dreams need space, that light grows brighter when shared. Wind gathers under the lantern glow, lifting skirts and hearts alike. Rapunzel inhales the warm scent of oil-lit wishes and fresh river water. Her life, once contained by stone, now stretches as boundless as sky. And as long as there are children to teach, lanterns to release, and pages to fill with color and words, she knows each morning will arrive with a brand new question whispered on the breeze. What shall we dream today?